Here.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Here.
Mayor Oliva.
Here.
All
Can we all-
members of City Council are present.
Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. We'll go from the pledge to the ceremonial presentations. And our first presentation is a proclamation proclaiming April as celebrate Diversity Month. I think we have former Mayor Wayne Lee here to accept that.
I'm here.
Whereas Celebrate Diversity Month was founded in 2004 to call on people to gain deeper understanding of each other and our differences. And whereas the United States of America was founded on the principles of freedom and equality, we are a country built by immigrants where we're all welcome. And whereas America's history has taught us that it is imperative to recognize and celebrate the diversity of all people. It is the diversity that makes us great. And whereas where we'll never forget who we are and where we come from. This time is to recognize and celebrate our unique characters, our cultures, backgrounds, and traditions. And whereas celebrating differences and similarities during this month is important because it allows people to gain a deeper understanding of one another, appreciating both our differences and our similarities. And whereas the city of Millbrae recognizes, appreciates, and celebrates the heritage and life experience of all. Now, therefore, we, the members of the city, the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2022 as Celebrate Diversity Month and encourage our community and our businesses to use this month to welcome, learn, and understand the people from all over the world to celebrate Diversity Month. Thank you, former Mayor Wayne Lee, for accepting this. Did you want to add anything to this?
Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council and city staff. Thank you for this very, very important proclamation. It's a testament of our city's commitment to recognize that everybody has a difference that we may not understand. We may not, whether it be religion, whether it be sexual orientation, whether it be the color of your skin, whether it be language. Or even if you're Chinese, there's still different types of Asians, there's different types of languages and different types of cultures in every household and every block. So this is not the city recognizes this is not a saying that, oh, you need to understand diversity, you need to be diverse. No, this is saying that we are a community, we are all human beings and we're all different. And recognizing that difference, it makes us more stronger, because we are able to bring more to the table, different ideas, different ways of doing things. And it's also an opportunity is for us, the person to get to know our neighbors too, because it's not my neighbor's job to know me. It is my job to to get to know my neighbor. So they can understand that I'm their neighbor. I'm going to there to protect them. I'm going to be watching out for their property. It doesn't matter the color of my skin, my religion, you're my neighbor. And I think the sooner we understand that, the better we all would be offhand. We could start working on more important things about making our community more strong, rather than worry about divisiveness and having to march and having to raise money for understanding. I think that's why the Millbrae Culture Committee has been formed, to bring awareness. It's so invite other people to understand different cultures. And so it's part of my job as the executive director and president of the Asian Pacific Islander Caucus, which is a organization of elected Asian Pacific Islanders. And also we espouse diversity, we espouse equality, and we espouse understanding. So we hope that us as a city, will be more diverse in the fact that we will reach out to our neighbors and reach out to people we don't know, and then so they can get to know us. So thank you for the opportunity. And the city has been taking many, many steps towards helping us become a stronger city. And I feel very privileged to be part of that. Thank you, Madam Mayor and City Council.
Thank you, Wayne Lee. Next on the agenda, we have a proclamation proclaiming April 22nd, 2022 as Earth Day. And Councilmember Schneider, would you like to read the proclamation and accept it?
I'm happy to. I didn't check the list to see if we had on our Sustainability Director, Andrea Papajohn, but yes, very happy to. Okay. Whereas the first Earth Day was proclaimed in 1970 to unite environmental groups and educate people about ongoing environmental issues, this year marks the 52nd anniversary of Earth Day, which was created by Senator Gaylord Nelson. And whereas the city of Millbrae has supported Earth Day and its mission since inception, the city has worked on many projects such as a tree dedication program, the community garden, the monarch pollinator garden, our artificial turf moratorium, and the upcoming tree inventory project. And whereas the city continues to incorporate environmental elements into the architectural design of approved projects, the new recreation center is designed to achieve close to or at net zero, meaning it'll generate all the energy that it needs. The new Alexandria Biotech project includes bird-friendly windows, and a new bioswale was added at Taylor Boulevard, Ashton Avenue, and Almanar. And whereas new benches will be installed on the spur trail as a result of the recycled plastic bag to park bench project, a city partnership with the Millbrae Leos Club. Additional efforts include painted bike lanes throughout the city to encourage biking and walking, reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And whereas the global theme for Earth Day 2022 is Invest in Our Planet, which focuses on accelerating solutions to combat our greatest threat, climate change. We encourage everyone, government, citizens, and businesses to do their part. And whereas this annual celebration is a reminder of the constant need for environmental activism and the urgency of protecting our planet for future generations, and whereas the city celebrates and supports Earth Day by implementing a variety of activities to engage our community's awareness and recommitting ourselves to the betterment of our planet. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2022 as Earth Day. And we encourage and invite our community and businesses to use not just April 22nd or the city's official Earth Day celebration, May 7th, but all of the other Earth Day activities organized by the community group Planet Savers and your schools to celebrate the Earth and commit to creating a cleaner and healthier environment for a better quality of life for current and future generations by planting trees, gardening, donating your unused produce to Second Harvest to feed the hungry, picking up litter, recycling, conserving energy and water. Please visit our city website for more information on our environmental programs and initiatives and projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schneider.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
on the next proclamation, we have to change a word.
Okay. Can we ask Judy Rian?
Mayor, could I actually do one more thing since we're on the topic of environment? If anybody is listening for Earth Day, there are 2 positions open on the Community Enhancement Advisory Committee. Please go to our website, fill out an application, and join the committee that's working on environmental issues for the city of Millbrae. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Judy in the audience?
She is.
Judy, you want to unmute yourself? And Gina, what word did you want to change?
The second paragraph, April 21st honors. We don't honor this. We remember.
Okay.
So please change this before it goes out.
Noted.
Thank you.
So Judy is from the Council of Armenian American Organizations of Northern California, and she will be accepting this proclamation for Armenian Remembrance Day. It is a national holiday in Armenia and is observed by Armenians in dispersed communities around, excuse me, my thing went up around the world. And whereas April 24th acknowledges the start, or what do you want to say, Gina?
Remembers.
Remembers
Yes.
the start of the Armenian genocide in the Armenian notables, deports from the Ottoman capital and ultimately executed. And whereas Armenian Remembrance Day is held annually to commemorate the victims of the Armenian genocide from 1915 to 1923, in which Ottoman Empire sought to systematically destroy the Armenian culture and people, resulting in the loss of 1.5 million Armenian lives. And whereas we remember the victims and the survivors of the Armenian genocide, we also honor the strengths and the resilience of the Armenian people, forced to build new lives. Armenians bravely forged ahead in the face of the unimaginable tragedy. And whereas on this solemn day of remembrance, we recall the darkness of the past and look ahead to a brighter future for the people of Armenia, and reaffirm our commitment to preventing future atrocities from being committed against any people. Now, therefore, we, the members of this Millbrae City Council, do proclaim April 24th, 2022 as Armenian Remembrance Day. And Judy, I would like to invite you to say anything that you would like to say to help us.
Yes, okay. I'm Judy Jingarian, and I lived in Millbrae for almost 30 years. My son went through all the schools there, so I'm a longtime Millbrae person and an Armenian American. The Armenian genocide perpetrated by the Turkish government in 1915 left us with no grandparents, no aunts, uncles, or anything. We came to the States with basically just the clothes on our back, and it was one of the first genocides perpetrated in history. There's a saying that Hitler used when he annihilated the Jews. He said, "Nobody paid attention when I killed 1.5 million Armenians, so I have carte blanche." And that's how the Holocaust started. It's repeating itself again right now in the Ukraine. Putin said nobody's paying attention again in Armenia. When the Azerbaijans went into Nagorno-Karabakh and started killing and attacking and taking our lands again. So genocide again is being perpetrated. During the tense weeks of again, against the Azerbaijan invasion, we had at our Armenian Community Center in San Francisco on Brotherhood, it was gunshots at it. There was graffiti, hate crimes, and the community center on Commonwealth in San Francisco also was burned down. And so a lot of our history went up in flames in that. And to this date, they still don't know who perpetrated these horrible crimes. In closing, I'd like to say we must all combat genocide and genocide denial with recognition, remembrance, and education, as you're doing today. Your remembrance of these events will not only serve to honor the victims and educate the public, but helps warn against future acts of genocide. Again, thank you for doing this for us, and keep up the good work, people.
Thank you for sharing.
Mayor, can I add real quick?
Sure, you want to say something? Go ahead.
Yes, Judy, thank you very much for being here. I emphasize the importance of recognizing this every single year, and we can see what's going on in the world around us. So you hit all the high points. I appreciate it. I stand with my Armenian brethren as a Greek American. So thank you for being here and really adding the emphasis.
Thank you. And on a side note, Mount Davidson Cross, which is the organization I represent, for the first time in 2 years, we're going to be able to do Easter sunrise services this coming Sunday. So all of the Bay Area is invited up to the cross for the services. Starts at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah, and I just want to emphasize just what Judy said. This type of discrimination and hate is still going on, as she pointed out, recently, and it continues. We cannot allow this. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a commendation for Barry Ongerth. Whereas Barry Ungerth joined the board of the San Mateo County Silicon Valley Convention and Visitors Bureau in 2005, representing Millbrae's hotel community as owner of the San Francisco Airport South Travelodge. And whereas Barry took over the family business in the 1980s and quickly boosted occupancy for all the hotels in the region by adding the airport shuttle service. He was a true visionary who shared his ideas to better the industry. And whereas in 2008, Barry saw potential threats to the industry and took a risk to transform his property, developing and executing a successful business plan. And whereas Barry disconnected his property with the franchise model and turned his property into independent boutique hotel, renaming it the Dillon. And whereas even throughout the pandemic and to the very end, Barry participated in the discussions involving the economic impacts the hotel faced during the pandemic. And whereas the city of Millbrae honors Barry Ungerth for his leadership, passion, and commitment to the hotel industry and community. Now, therefore, we, the members of the Millbrae City Council, do hereby commend Barry Ungerth. And Barry Ungerth's wife, Tina, was hopefully going to be able to accept this, but she was on vacation and she didn't have Wi-Fi on the boat she was with. So she did express her gratitude for this, and hopefully we'll be able to see her around town and in Millbrae and congratulate her on this for her husband. Thank you.
And this is in memoriam?
Yes. So if we can move forward to the agenda overview and the staff briefing, City Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Good evening to you, members of the City Council. Tom Williams, City Manager. Real quick on the agenda overview, we have our calendar of events as an information item, reports of bills and claims for the month as well as an information item. Then approval of the meeting minutes, item number 3 on the agenda, regular meeting minutes for January 25th. 2022 and the special meeting minutes of January 25th, 2022. We have no reports this evening from any city committee or commission chairs. Then we move to public communication. This item on the agenda is for any member of the public to address the city council on any item not on the agenda. Please note that any community or any public communication of the city council, since it's not on the agenda, the staff or city council actually cannot address it. And community will have 3 minutes to speak. Then we move to the consent calendar. We have 4 items on the consent calendar, starting with item number 5, which is to consider adoption of a resolution of finding that the proclaimed state of emergency continues to impact the ability to safely meet, and declaring that the city council and city commissions and committees will continue to meet remotely in order to ensure the health safety of the public pursuant to the governor's order. Item number 6 is to consider approval by motion of the quarterly investment schedule for the second quarter of the fiscal year for 21-22. Item number 7 is to consider adoption of a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Mid-Peninsula Boys and Girls Club to operate and provide educational enrichment programs for Millbrae youth. I do believe that this was an item that was requested to be pulled from the agenda, Mayor, for discussion. Item number 8 is to consider a resolution to designate what is in quotes or termed applicant agents for the purpose of obtaining federal funding in the event of emergency. All this is designating staff by resolution to sign documentation in case there is an emergency for FEMA applications to ensure that we receive adequate funding. Then moving on to public hearing items, we do not have any public hearing items this evening. We also do not have any item under existing business. Then moving to new business, we actually have 4 items, starting with item number 9, and this is to consider authorizing the issuance of the public hearing notice for wastewater rate changes for fiscal year 22-23 through fiscal year 26-27, and to also authorize issuance for future wholesale water rate pass-throughs on a Prop 18 protest vote. Then moving to item number 10, this is an informational item to share with the council on council chamber improvements to accommodate both in-person and hybrid meetings. This is an information item that if we get direction from the council. We'll bring back more details at the next meeting. Item number 11 is an informational item on the overview of the 2022 Citizens Academy. And item number 12 is to consider a resolution to reopen the Mackey Mickelson Arthritis and Rehabilitation Therapy Pool. Then we move on to council comments and then adjournment. So real quick, Mayor, just a few community updates. It is spring and it's spring bunny season, and we have two events. One is the Spring Bunny at the Millbrae Gazebo. This will be held on this Saturday, April 16th from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is a drive-by to see the Spring Bunny at the gazebo, wave hello, and also there is a giveaway of sweet treats and spring eggs. And this is sponsored by our recreation department. Then we also have the Spring Bunny coloring contest. Any child can join the Spring Bunny coloring contest and enter to win a gift card to Nothing But Cakes or T4 tea shop here locally in Millbrae. The contest is now open to children ages 2 through 12. There will be first place winners in each category by age, and they will get also the amount is $15 to Nothing But Cakes. Second place winners in each category will be $10 to T4. Those kids that are interested could submit their coloring and get information at the City of Millbrae's website. This event will conclude on April 11th, which, according to my phone, was yesterday. So I apologize. It was yesterday. Mackenzie, can kids still participate?
Yes, if they want to go ahead and get those items in by today, and then we can get over. The Rotary folks are the ones who are judging the coloring.
Okay. All right, sounds good. And then the other two events are our Millbrae Goes to the Movies. So we're back this summer. We're asking for the community to vote for their favorite movies that we can show throughout the months of the summer. The survey will be open until April 15th. And votes can be and the survey on our website. You can visit bit.ly/Millbrae Movies. Again, bit.ly/Millbrae Movies to vote on your favorite movie for our summer movie events. And then lastly, this is presented by the Millbrae Library. It's Music on the Lawn. People are encouraged to bring blankets, chairs, picnic items. And the Millbrae Library is hosting a band called Changed Particles. And it's 3 acoustic instruments and electric jazz. They say that the trio is a funky Latin jazz repertoire, and it blends in elements of classical music and mixes a complex orchestration with freewheeling improvisations. So come out to the first concert held and sponsored by the library on April 18th at 6 p.m. At the over at the gazebo in the large grass area in front of the library. So Mayor, that concludes my impromptu update of what's happening in the community.
Thank you very much. And I apologize for a few dog barks there. Former Mayor Wayne Lee just came to my house to put lighting on. It didn't do anything different, but it caused a lot of commotion, let me tell you. There he goes again. Sorry. We're going to move to the approval of minutes, please. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Happen second.
Vote, please.
Councilmember Schneider,
Mayor, I'm sorry, I actually had a 2-word change to the regular meeting, January 25th council comments to include the word underground high-speed rail station in Burbank. So if the council will accept that, then I can vote yes.
Maker of the motion. Do you accept it? Anders?
Yes.
Second.
Second accepts.
Thank you. Yes.
Councilmember Holliber,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The city council approves the special meeting minutes of January 25th, 2022 as presented, and the regular meeting minutes of January 25th, 2022 with amendments to the council comments by a vote of 5-0.
Okay, so we will look to oral reports, of which we have none. And next, after that would be public communication. Anybody would like to speak for something that is not on the agenda? Could you please raise your hand? And we'll have a timer up for 3 minutes. Do we have any hands raised from the public? We have a big crowd here tonight. There we go. Okay, I think the first on my list is Michael Kelly.
Hi, thank you, Madam Mayor, esteemed City Council. My name is Michael Kelly, and I'm coming tonight to express my dismay and deep disappointment with the majority of the City Council. On one hand, we hear all the right words. The other hand, the behavior, the actions do not back it up. We hear proclamations about diversity and inclusion and equity, and we see nothing like that. 2 years ago, Mayor Holliber gave a speech when George Floyd was murdered and said there will be anti-bias training in Millbrae. We're still waiting. It's been 2 years. We are really concerned with what's happening on our current majority of the City Council. We bring in groups that are helping to prevent human trafficking and exploitation of our most vulnerable and our least represented and the community citizens that are most in need. And here we are with the person that was appointed sheriff to be the leader to protect people like that. And before he even became sheriff, he's caught up in clouds of controversy, caught in a brothel with the previous sheriff Monks, detained, investigated by Las Vegas police, claims he thought he was at a massage parlor. He's at a house with bars in the windows and underage. That means children prostitutes. He's there thinking he's at a massage parlor. And here we've got the smiling face of Councilmember Fung, Mayor Oliva, Councilmember Pappen, endorsing this sheriff that's clouded in controversy, fundraising for him. This is the man responsible. He had the 5 deputies under his command when a Black man was tased to death in Millbrae, Sinead Okobi. And he is the single person responsible for the vast majority of deportations, detainees that were, yes, some were felons, some were misdemeanors, were turned over to ICE after they served their jail sentence. In 2020, 74% of the people turned over to ICE came from San Mateo County. There are 9 counties in the Bay Area. And San Mateo County accounted for 74% of them. The other 8 counties add up to about 26% or about 3% each. His watch, 20 times more than any other county in the Bay Area, turned people, ruined families, broke apart children who were citizens, sent one or both of their parents out of the country, and it was a horrible practice. He has even admitted that this is not okay. And what I think is for craven political expediency, just a few months ago, he finally stopped the process. But again, the smiling faces of our city council endorsing him, fundraising for him, it's appalling. We say we stand for supporting diversity and equity and inclusion, and our Millbrae City Council, the majority of them are not doing that. So I call on you to recant your endorsement of him, or if you won't do that, at least go and explain yourselves in social media or an editorial to the paper, because this is not acceptable. This is not what you were elected.
Mayor, to be fair to everyone, 3 minutes is
Yeah,
3 minutes is
I'm
up.
sorry, Michael, to cut you off. I will
Thank
go
you.
to Angelina.
Hello, yes, my name is Angelina Cahalan, and I'm a Millbrae resident here. And tonight, I would like to speak about transportation options for East Millbrae residents to park and rec activities at the rec center and the library in Taylor. I know the new community center is getting ready to open, and the transportation is often an issue for a lot of folks in the east of El Camino area. I know my children go to Lomita Park, and there's often park and rec activities after school sports programs like basketball, and there's often teams from each school as part of these, and Lomita is often left out. We have parents that are working multiple jobs, they or don't have cars, and we're just not able to get our kids to the community center or Taylor or the library where these events are happening. There's a lot of seniors in our area as well that are missing out on the great senior programs that are happening. And I know we have a really strong and vast park and rec program, but we have a lot of our residents, simply due to lack of transportation, completely missing out on these opportunities. As a public service, as public programs in our city, I think we have a responsibility, that you all as leaders in the community have a responsibility to ensure that all Millbrae residents have an equal access to participate in these activities that our city has to offer. So my ask tonight is, as you're planning the opening of the community center, as you're planning recreation events, to ensure that transportation is a part of those plans for in that budget. So thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I'm going to speak on a different topic. And this topic came about as a result of my morning walks all around Millbrae. So the first is, I want to commend Public Works for their incredible fast response to ordinary citizens like me who stumble into what actually are quite bizarre things lurking in our woods. For example, living rooms set up in the woods off Spur Trail, cooking oil on the side of the road, like massive amounts of debris. All I have to do is snap a picture and they are there, and I want to commend them. That being said, in my walks, I found some things that I thought were really strange. They were labeled things like aloe grape, mixed berries, red cherries, strawberry banana, strawberry ice cream. These are flavors of tobacco that our children are using in their vaping. Vaping is not healthy. I ended up looking this up because I'm so old, I don't know what this stuff is all about. There are about 10 ingredients in the aerosol that children who are vaping ingest, and they're cancer causing. So I come to you today to ask you please to join the 10 cities and unincorporated San Mateo, so our neighbors, including San Carlos, South San Francisco, Burlingame, Menlo Park, East Palo Alto, San Mateo, Pacifica, and Redwood City, and please adopt an ordinance restricting the sale of flavored tobacco products from our city. Do not let them be sold here. It is a strong signal to our community that you care about the health. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I do not see any other hands raised. If somebody can help me.
I don't see any other hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, so we'll go on to existing business, of which we don't have any, but we do have some, oh, excuse me, consent calendar. I skipped down. Consent calendar, but before we go to the consent calendar, could we please, we have a question from Councilmember Schneider that maybe we could clear up before we pull. Councilmember Schneider?
Thank you, Mayor. I had alerted the city manager a couple of days ago that the Boys and Girls Club has been in the news lately, and I don't know if there's a representative here. If there is, my concern is, according to the Daily Journal, that the boys clubs have merged together. That's fine. They're going to be spending or concentrating efforts on northern San Mateo County, and I don't quite know what that is defined as. Northern, sometimes Millbrae is part of North County, sometimes we're not. I have attended Boys and Girls Club events up in Daly City near the really amazing youth center they have up there. So I think it's marvelous, and I fully support us spending $100,000 for the after school program and the tutoring and the other things that they do. But I don't know if with the merging, it's going to impact the work they do here in Millbrae. And maybe this could be handled as having the Boys and Girls Club come back and give an update presentation. I think it's been a couple of years since we've seen them. And just know what they're doing. And I know I see Miss Callahan from Landing Lane area. It was my understanding in the past that our Boys and Girls Club contract included work projects, programs at Lamita Park School, recognizing that transportation problem. So it would be great to know if we're still going to do that problem in what is probably our most impacted neighborhood in Millbrae. So I'm happy to vote for it, want to vote for it, but I'd like more information. It makes me nervous because a lot of funding is being directed at priority equity communities, and we are not one.
But do you have a question with regards to the?
I did. I said I would like to know if the merging is going to impact what programs are here in Millbrae, and what is it going to do to the program at Lamita Park School, and maybe just an update of what the program is doing.
Okay.
They used to come to us annually and
All
give a
right.
report.
Then let's pull it from the consent calendar. And let's
Okay.
go to consent calendar for items 5, 6, and 8.
And I'm happy to make a motion to adopt 5, 6, and 8.
May I just for agenda management, based on the questions of the council member, why don't we continue item number 7 to the next meeting, and then we can invite representatives of the Boys and Girls Club and get answers to that question. We're not going to be able to answer for questions.
And we have plenty of time to authorize an agreement with them.
Yes.
Perfect. All
Thank
right.
you. Thank
So
you. Perfect.
Second motion on the agenda, and then I think you have a comment.
Okay. Do we have a comment? I don't
Yes, I just
Angelina has her.
Thank you. I didn't see that. Go ahead, Angelina.
wanted to share that I believe that the program at Lomita Park is funded by a Prop 4245 grant. So I don't know if that grant funding is included in that 100,000 or on top of, if that's part of the city council budget or the school board budget.
So Angelina,
But-
we're gonna get all the answers for you on the next meeting, because we're gonna take this item that you're speaking about and move it so we can get all the facts straight.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that detail in
Perfect.
case anyone wasn't aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're voting on items 5, 6, and 8. There's a motion and a second. Can we call for a vote, please?
Councilmember Schneider,
Madam Mayor,
Aye.
sorry,
Oh.
Madam Mayor, I think, Madam Mayor, so I think the motion is to approve 5, 6, and 8 and continue 7. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Okay, just want to be clear.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if City Clerk, Ann Schneider is a yes.
okay, thank you. Councilmember Oliver,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung. Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
thank you. Vice Mayor Peppin,
Aye.
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The city council approves consent calendar items 5, 6, and 8, and will continue item number 7. By a vote 5-0.
Thank you. Tonight we have no public hearing and we have no existing business, so we'll go to item number 9 to authorize issuance of a public hearing notice for wastewater rate changes for fiscal year 2022 to 23 to fiscal year 26, 27, and future wholesale water rate pass-throughs. The clerk do you want to explain the amendment to this item?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to note that there was a few typos that were identified on paragraph 1 on page 1, and also paragraph 1 of page 5 as well of the staff report.
Thank you. Did we have any questions on this item? No
Is there a staff presentation?
It was, you got everything?
Okay,
And then we also got the amendment later this afternoon, I believe.
this is going to be, I'm amazed we don't have a presentation because this is water rates and the public.
It's at the desire of the council. We do have a presentation. I'll continue to do my best Ron Burgundy impersonation and read what's on the teleprompter if that's the desire of the council, or you can move right to a motion. So
I
it's at the
think
pleasure of the council.
presentation, please.
Okay, I would like to introduce Mr. Mike Sung, our finance director, for a staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Before I turn it over to our consultant, Alex Handlers from Bartle Wells and Associates, I'd like to just make some brief comments as to the items and what we're actually looking at. Here, we're really looking for council direction and authorization to publish a notice of public hearing for our Prop 218 for two items. One is for the sewer rates, of which we've done a 5-year study with the help of Bartle Wells and Associates. And the other is basically kind of a protection measure for ourselves for passing through any increases to the wholesale rates above $5. And that's actually really relevant, as we've just recently heard that SFPC is raising our wholesale rates from $4.10 per CCF to $4.75 per CCF. So the other item I wanted to kind of talk about is council authorizing us to consider placing the utility billing for sewer services onto the San Mateo County tax roll. And we wanted to do this well in advance, giving a year's notice so that property owners can actually plan for this. We wanted to kind of just get authorization to review this and then to kind of get some more information before we come back in another staff report to talk about putting it onto the tax roll in itself. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alex Handlers, our consultant from Bartle Wells Associates.
Thank you, Mike, and nice to see everybody again. So I've got a presentation here I'm going to walk through and open it up if there's questions afterwards. As Mike mentioned, we're not, there's no action being taken on rates tonight. It's really for direction to move ahead with the Prop 218 rate increase process. And the other just quick background thing I want to mention is your sewer utility is an enterprise fund. So the revenues that are generated from the service charges, that's where almost all of the money comes from. That has to be adequate to fund all the expenses of the enterprise. And also to remind everyone that under the California Constitution, all the sewer rate revenues that people pay go to the operating, maintenance, debt service, and capital needs of the sewer system. So every cent goes into funding your sewer costs of service. The next slide, a quick background on your rates and where you've come from. Back in, going back to 2010, there's about 5 years, the city didn't do any sewer rate increases. So they held the line on rates for 5 years. The last sewer rate increases were adopted in 2015 to 2019. There was a kind of a phase in of 5 years of rate increases. Those rates, completed their course in 2019. And the last couple of years, the city deferred taking any action on sewer rates. So there's been no rate increases since. And you've been able to do that for a couple of purposes. One is the city was able to defer temporarily some of the operating and maintenance expenses. I think there was some reprioritization of capital needs. And a part of it was also refinancing of some prior sewer debt for savings. And I think it worked out to be a net present value savings of about 4.5 million. So congratulations to the city on that. That was a nice achievement. You did your refunding at a good time when interest rates were very low. So where are we? And the other thing that the city also did is the Clean Bay charges. Those had been, there was like a 5-year phase-in of Clean Bay charges. In the last 2 years of increases, there was 2 5% increases scheduled to go into effect the last 2 years. Those have also been deferred and not implemented. And we don't anticipate they're going to be implemented going forward either, at least for the time being. So what we did is work with the city staff to develop some updated financial projections for your sewer enterprise, looking at all the operating and capital and debt service funding needs. So we're looking long-term. And what we're trying to do with the rates is phase in the rates as gradually as possible. So at the end of 5 years, you're supporting balanced budgets and meeting your funding needs. And I'll show you, I'm going to cut to the chase of the recommendations in a minute, but we initially went to the infrastructure subcommittee with the preliminary recommendations, and those were forwarded on, recommended to bring it back to full council for consideration. So next slide shows just summary of the recommendations. What we're recommending is overall 6% sewer rate increases for each of the next 5 years. And that's needed as, again, to meet all your operating, maintenance, debt service, and capital funding needs. What we're targeting is after the 5-year period is up, that those rates would not only support the O&M, but about 4 million of sewer capital improvements per year to your aging facilities. That equates to about 3.5 million in current dollars escalated out for the next 5 years. We're trying to balance a couple of things here with these rate increases. We know nobody likes rate increases. No one likes adopting rate increases, but you need them to support your sewer enterprise. What we're trying to do is keep the rate increase as low as possible and phase them in as gradually as possible, while also meeting the funding needs of your sewer enterprise. And as I mentioned, for the Clean Bay charges, we're assuming no rate increases for those, that those would continue, those prior adopted increases would continue to be deferred indefinitely. On the next slide, we're also recommending is some changes to the sewer rate structure itself. Your sewer rate structure hasn't changed in many years. The rates are supposed to have a reasonable nexus with the cost of service to each of your customer classes. So we developed some new rates that realign the rates with cost of service. So because of that, different customer classes are going to see different impacts. It's not going to be 6% across the board rate increases. What that is translating to for your residential customers is that they're the ones who benefit from this rate structure realignment. Residential rates would see no increase to the quantity charges for the first 2 years. So even though it's overall 6% rate increases, charges for a typical single family home with typical use is going to be about 3.7 to 3.8% in each of the first 2 years, after 2 years of zero rate increases. Next slide. Where does the money go that you collect for your sewer rates? So this is kind of based on the current sewer rates and the Clean Bay charges and what they fund. And the pie chart shows a breakdown with the blue being your wastewater treatment and the green being your collection system and administrative costs together. It's about 64% of the cost for operations. You've got 21% of the cost going to debt service. And that's after the refunding that is lower debt service. And that leaves about 2 million per year for capital. And herein lies part of the reason that's driving the rate increases. 2 million a year for capital is not adequate for the agency your size. And considering the age of a lot of the sewer pipelines, this is something many agencies in the Bay Area are dealing with right now. There's a lot of old facilities. They were put in 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago. And these pipelines have been fine, but they're now approaching the end of the useful life, and they're going to need some reinvestment to keep them in good, safe, working order. And generally, we find when agencies are proactively addressing the funding needs of aging facilities, it actually saves them money because you're proactively dealing with things before they become a problem, rather than dealing with them in hindsight and having to make emergency repairs. So we can't guarantee you won't have any emergency repairs, but I know that the goal is to try to stay ahead of that, so you don't have to have, emergency repairs can be a lot more expensive than planned out sewer improvements. So those are the main reasons for the rate increases: higher levels of capital funding. On the administrative side, your rates are supporting the current operations, but costs tend to increase every year, whether it's electricity, insurance, staffing, you name it. So you need to keep, if you think you need inflationary rate increases just to tread water and keep things, rates lined up with the cost. So you need more capital funding, keep rates aligned with cost inflation. And again, after these rates are phased in, the goal is supporting balanced budgets. Moving on to the next slide. And thank you, by the way, for changing the slides. This shows a 10-year projection of the bars. There are, breakdown of your expenses, and that red line through there shows the revenues with the projected rate increases for the next 5 years, and some, assumed relatively inflationary rate increases after that. And you can see your current rates aren't really covering the current year expenses. The red line doesn't meet the full capital needs of your system. And you can see over the next couple of years, the capital needs are a lot higher than 4 million. It's, over 9 million per year. And some of that reflects that the city's had a number of projects. They don't always, sometimes it takes a little more time to get them designed and built. So you have some projects that hadn't been funded in prior years that still need to get done. That's helped build up a little bit of sewer fund reserves. So the plan is that those fund reserves are going to be drawn down when you do complete these projects over the next few years. And then you can see long-term, the rates are meant to be aligned with the annual costs of service, supporting balanced budgets. Next slide. I talked about the proposed rate structure modifications to realign rates with cost of service. So most of this is happening on the commercial side. We're recommending some changes to your commercial rates, where instead of having separate rates for things like auto service stations, schools with food service, hotels, transitioning to a simpler structure with commercial rates based on wastewater strength, and having 4 classes: low strength, moderate, high, and high strength. Most of your customers are in the lower levels there. And what's also to mention, the reason the rates get higher, the higher strength wastewater, the rates need to be higher because it costs more to treat the contaminants that are in the wastewater to get them down to the regulated levels. So that's why higher strength customers like restaurants, for example, should have higher rates than residential customers or schools. And also there's some customers under your current system that are sort of look like they're receiving preferential rates. So again, we're getting rid of those and trying to make sure everyone's rates align with the cost of service. And again, every customer class will be impacted a little bit differently. One of the beneficiaries of this, as I mentioned, is your residential customers, again, who are going to see no increases to the quantity charges for the first couple of years. Moving on to the next slide. This shows, we just want to make sure you're clear of all this stuff. This shows the mapping of the existing rate classes on the left to the proposed rate classes on the right. And for an example, I'll look at your the one at the very bottom there. Currently, you have separate rates for restaurants, food processors, and supermarkets happen to have the same rates, and those are being mapped over to a new, simpler, high strength category on the right. And what that all leads to is the next slide, which shows what the rates look like with the proposed increases and with the proposed rate structure modifications. And to give you a quick reminder of the sewer rates, there's 2 components. There's a fixed charge per account or residential dwelling unit, and there's a quantity charge that's based on usage. The residential usage charges are based on winter water use, so it doesn't capture people irrigating their lawns in the summertime. And the commercial charges are billed per, all the use. And one thing to point out, you look at the residential rates there, it's currently $6.62 per 100 cubic feet of winter water use. Most people, including myself, don't think in terms of 100 cubic feet. 100 cubic feet equals about 748 gallons. So if I was to take your residential charges and translate them from 100 cubic feet to 100 gallons, it works out to your residential rates increasing from a current level of 89 cents per 100 gallons to $1.05 per 100 gallons over the next 5 years. So the residential rates, they'll end up being, a tinge over 1 cent per gallon anytime someone puts waste, down the drain. Next slide just shows a projection of what the sewer rate impacts are. And really, I'm just going to highlight the middle one there, which is a residential user with a typical use of 5,500 cubic feet of monthly sewer use, monthly winter water use. And the rates currently, the bill works out to be about $95.30, where it's been for the last couple of years. And that's going to increase to, if these were approved, to $98.84 next year, $102.59, going up to $122 at the end of 5 years. And I'll also point out one of the philosophies of this rates you know, a lot of times agencies ask me, you know, can we get by with no rate increases? Can we do no rate increase? And the answer is, yeah, you can, but there's a cost. And what we've seen to agencies, you know, who tend to do no rate increases is instead of doing, you know, slower gradual rate increases, they go a couple of years, and it makes the future rates have to be a little bit steeper to catch up. But anyway, accounting for, you know, going back to 2019, the year of the last rate increase, if you factor in all these rate increases that are proposed, it compounds to be about 3.6% per year from 2019 all the way out to 2026 for a typical single family home. So that is a little bit higher than inflation, or at least what it has been, but that's, you know, trying to keep up with the cost of service and phase it in again to support balanced budgets. Next slide. We also put a slide in here because the question always comes up, can we get by with lower rate increases? And I'm never going to tell you you can't, but I never think it's necessarily a good idea. But we did look at what the impact would be. So I just wanted to point out each 1% reduction in rates from the proposed overall rate. So that would be going from 6% to 5% a year. And again, the residential rate impacts are a little bit lower. Where does that leave you? It leaves you, after 5 years, about $650,000 less in revenues for your capital needs is typically where that comes out of. And again, my philosophy is, you know, less now tends to equal more later and vice versa. And the other thing I wanted to just remind council of is when you adopt rates according to Prop 218, you're really authorizing the maximum rates that could be implemented. You can never go any higher without going through the process again, but you can go lower. And you've actually done that. You had deferred your water rates for a few years and not implemented them. You've deferred that with your clean bay charges as well. So even though you had rates adopted, you didn't implement them. I don't want to hold out any false hope that we're saying, hey, you don't have to implement these sewer rates. But you know, if things come out a little better than anticipated, because no one has a perfect crystal ball, you know, maybe in years 4 and 5, potentially there could be an opportunity to, you know, to do something a little bit lower, but usually that's not the case, but sometimes it can work out. Going on to the next slide. Also wanted to remind everyone that the city does have a low income sewer discount program. Not every city has this. You offer a 25% reduction to the fixed charge. So you call it universal life support rates. It's based on income eligibility, not as determined by the city looking at people's tax returns, but based on their participation in PG&E's CARE program, customer assistance rate program. So anyone who is on that program can simply show that to the city, and the city gives them the discount. The discount currently works out to be $14.70 per month, or about $176 per year. And the plan would be to continue that 25% discount to the fixed charge with the rate as your rate increases are also being implemented. So the discount would then ramp up also up to about $19.70 per month, or about $236 per year. And you know, we're just encouraging everyone to, the city's been encouraging everyone to apply who can be. You'll have a number of folks who are currently on this, but often there's some people who are eligible who just haven't taken the next step of notifying the city. So we're going to put that also in the Prop 218 notice to make sure everyone gets another reminder that they, if eligible, they're, you know, they can apply and get the discount. So that's the sewer rates. Moving on to the next slide, I think we go to the water. I know we talked about this at a prior council meeting. The city deferred water rate increases for a couple of years. So the plan is not to do any new water rate increases, but to phase in those deferred rate increases over the next 3 years. And that's already been, we've already approved those rates. There's no new Prop 218 needed. However, as Mike was mentioning, the wild card is San Francisco Public Utility Commission wholesale water rates. That's where you get 100% of your water supply. Their rates they don't go up gradually. Sometimes, especially during periods of reduced water sales during droughts, and that's what they're currently anticipating, that their water sales are going down. So they're going to be raising their rates in upcoming years. when your rate increases were adopted, your water rate increases were adopted, over 5 years ago, it wasn't anticipated that the SFPUC rates were going to keep going up forever. So what's being proposed is kind of a protection for you that if the wholesale water rates go up more than $5 per unit, they're currently only $4.10 per unit, but once they go over $5, to give the city the authorization to pass through future wholesale rates once they go above $5. Doesn't mean you have to do it. If the wholesale rates went to $5.01, you might not, want to do a 1 cent rate increase, but it's going to give you for 5 years the ability, if SFPUC keeps escalating their rates, that you can at least keep up with those rate increases. And this may defer, the amount of time before you need to go back with another Prop 218 on the water rate side. So this is authorization that's being seeked in the same Prop 218 process, but it'll be a separate public hearing on that. On the next slide, thank you. So just to conclude, there's no action for adopting the rates tonight, just looking for the direction to move ahead with the 218 process for the sewer rates and these, wholesale rate pass-throughs above $5. What we're aiming for is a public hearing on June 14th, meaning you have to move soon to get going on the 218 process, because that entails mailing a notice to all the property owners and ratepayers. That notice has to be mailed at least 45 days prior to the public hearing. So for a June 4th public hearing, you've got to get the notices out by the end of April, which gives you, a little less than about 3 weeks, with the goal of the new sewer rates becoming effective on July 1. And as Mike mentioned, in future years, the direction that is being looked for council is for also, transitioning those charges to the San Mateo County property tax rolls. But that's not going to happen this year. That would be another full year down the line, July of 2023. So that concludes everything. I hope I didn't bore you too much with this financial rate stuff. Nobody likes talking about rates, but they are a necessity for, supporting the operating and capital funding needs of your sewer enterprise. Thank you. Turn it back over to City Council or City Manager or Mike.
Yeah, thanks. Real quick, Mayor, if I may, just to add on to Alex's presentation here, if you can go back to slide 13. And, as Alex was saying on this protest, on this Prop 218 vote, we just did receive from SFPUC today that they are increasing their wholesale water rates 15.9%. So that's going to bring the cost up to $4.75. This is the amount that we pay, that the city pays to SFPUC, that we buy water. And so that is going up 15.9%. So I wanted to, that's new information, and wanted to just let the council know that this will move from $4.10 per HCF or CCF to $4.75.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Pappen has a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Indeed, I do. I think, thank you very much for the presentation, Alex. Very helpful. I think this definitely needs to be posted on our website along with the announcement from the SFPUC here. I have a few questions here. First and foremost, this infuriates me to no end. We put 200 or 2 million aside. Where is that money being spent? I don't see transparency. I don't see what sewer pipes or water pipes are being fixed. And I do think the public is entitled to know that. In our previous meeting with goal setting, we said there needs to be more accountability so that we know the public has to know there's an end game. Are we ever going to be caught up on our water pipes, our sewer pipes? There is new technology out there. So how is this money being spent? This money we set aside every year for infrastructure. If we are going, we have to obviously proceed as was suggested by Alex, because delay only costs us more and more. But I am really have not seen the transparency that we need to have here to justify all of this. And it does need to be justified. So that's point one. Point two, the debt service is actually costing more than the infrastructure investment. Have we looked at a way to reduce the debt service, whether I'm not the financial whiz here, but can we take part of our reserves, use it to bring down the debt to save some money, pay it back later? We have to look at something. It just doesn't make sense that your debt service costs more than your investment in infrastructure. So please, we need to look at these things so that we can get control of a portion of the costs. I get San Francisco controls a lot of what happens here. We also mentioned, thirdly, that we would transfer at some point in time the sewer rates to the property tax. That was, I don't believe, mentioned here. If that's part of the plan, then that needs to be put into the plan and how we progress along those lines. My final question here is, what, if anything, I have heard recently, people, not necessarily people in need, or, people are not paying their water bills. Are we carrying their, isn't that just adding to our debt? I can understand if somebody can't afford to pay their water bill, but if they are outright not paying it, and the city of Millbrae takes on the burden, and doesn't that increase our debt? So 4 very important questions here. I agree with the presentation. We have to address this now, but those questions need to be answered as we move forward. Thank you.
I think, did you want to answer a couple of those questions before we go on? Because I think
I'd like to answer a couple of those questions, Mayor and Councilmember Pappen. So in regards to the debt service in itself, we've taken many steps, as Alex had mentioned already. One was we refunded the 2009 COPs, and those actually saved us about $4.5 million. What that actually translates to, if you actually look at the schedule for the debt, it would have been approximately, we were looking at about $600,000 more in debt for the next 4 years, and then kind of tapering down later on. So that's why we were kind of able to get by without having those increases in the last couple of years. We basically refunded the debt, saved about $4.5 million over the next 18 years. That really translates to quite a bit. That's about $270,000 a year on average, but it's really front loaded. We saved about $600,000 for these next 4 years on the debt in itself. In regards to the other question, question 4, I believe, regarding getting the sewer bill onto the tax roll in itself, we mentioned that in the beginning, we're not tying that to the Prop 218 process. That's basically for the actual sewer rates and for the wholesale water pass through. We just wanted to give notice so that people are aware that we're looking into that, and we wanted council to basically authorize us to proceed forward and get a consultant and actually calculate out what the cost would be to put everything on there. Putting it onto the roll itself is quite inexpensive. It's a couple $1,000s, but to actually get a consultant and to have that moved on to the tax roll, it takes time. We wanted to give a lot of time, mainly because we know there's a lot of people that have different leases. So giving about a year's notice, we thought would be sufficient time to kind of mitigate if you had some upcoming leases that were to come up. So I did want to respond to those couple of questions right away, and then we'll come back to you with.
No, thank you, Mike, and congratulations on reducing the debt to this point. I would like to see further reductions in some creative manner so that we can get ahead of this. And if it takes a year, I think we need to explain that to the public as to what we're doing and start the process. I think that's a part of being transparent and accountable, that we have dates and we stick to them. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to make one little comment with regards to the leases. So not only do they have different types of leases where taxes and insurance and that kind of good stuff is attached to the rents, but also sometimes there's shared meters for a lot of the commercial buildings too. So before we just jump to conclusions on that's really got to be looked at.
Okay.
Councilmember Schneider?
I'm sorry, can you answer the late
Sorry.
water payments? Anybody?
So for the late water payments, we've actually gotten a lot of people to pay for the late water and sewer payments. There is kind of a an amount that's usually set that has been delinquent and has grown during the pandemic. But generally, it's about 1 to 2%, and it's not a very large amount compared to how much revenue that tends to go in. Staff has been working very hard trying to collect the late amounts, and we've treated everybody equally. We've had a lot of success in getting a lot of the amounts back and up to speed. We're continuing to pursue that with a couple of other entities that are still a little bit late, but for the most part, we've actually been relatively successful in recouping most of that.
Thank you. Let's go to Councilmember Schneider, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Ruben, Councilman Holliber is also there. We did talk at the infrastructure subcommittee level about moving to the property tax rolls. And as the mayor pointed out, there can be shared meters. I have had at times 3 or 5 year leases with my tenants, and they pay their own utilities. So if suddenly portions are under property tax, which I pay, that will have an impact to landlords. So we talked about a process going forward, how to reach out to landlords, make sure that they understand that this is coming and how they might, and we wouldn't be modifying their lease agreements, but to look at it over time. In terms of, where's my other note? So that should be coming back to us, Mr. Handler. When did we talk about, or Mike, we talked about how to bring the moving to property tax back to council, but later. It was later in the year. But while Councilman Holliber is still on council, so that we can share with that, because we know that's a big concern. Sorry,
I can answer that right now. I think what we're planning to do is get a consultant to review some of the figures and come back to council within a couple of months so that we can give you some better figures. We just kind of wanted your blessing or authorization to kind of move forward with that so we can see exactly what that would entail.
So that would need to be in our motion tonight. Move forward with bringing on a consultant to do the investigation for moving portions of the water sewer rates into property tax, correct?
For the sewer rates.
Oh, just the sewer rates, not the portion of water.
Yeah, the water wouldn't be going onto the property tax,
Okay.
The sewer rates would be.
Couple of questions then. I have to replace some toilets. I'm really disappointed. I have a toilet that's from 1988 and there are no toilet rebates right now. So, okay, I can afford it, but we're going into another drought. We're going to see more rate changes. It would be lovely if staff and our representative to Bosqua started looking at rebates to help our customers save water. And Mr. Handler, you pointed out something at our meeting that I wasn't aware of. Your sewer rate is based on your water consumption. I thought it was only the month of February, but it's actually December through March. Tell the public where they can save money then to save them in sewer rates later.
You bet. I mean, right now, the way it's set up, it's 4 winter months. So it's 2 bi-monthly billing cycles. So some folks are on November through February and others are December through March. So it's meant to cover, roughly the wet weather season. And it's hard doing it 1 month because if someone goes on vacation or if they have a leak with their toilet, it can make a huge swing in their bills. So I think you have a pretty good system the way it is set up right now. We're kind of 4 consecutive wet weather months.
Very good. And Vice Mayor Pappen talked about where we had been spending our money. I haven't checked our website, but in years past, every public works project was mentioned on our website and what the project was and how far along it was accomplished. If we haven't been able to keep up with that with all of the pandemic hits to our public works department, could we bring that back on our website so that the public can see how we're spending these very critical infrastructure dollars? City Manager. This is why I had that subcommittee last year to really look at our website. We could be doing so much more with our website in helping the public see where we are spending and helping council members know that we are moving forward on infrastructure capital improvement projects. Thank you.
Thank you. See, Councilmember Holliver, and then we're going to go to the public. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Fung, I see your hand up too. You're after Holliver, please.
Thank you. Yes, we discussed this extensively within the infrastructure subcommittee recently. And these rates, I think when many of us were coming on to the council, we were coming off of the Baykeepers consent decree and several years of deferred rate increases. And it got to the point where we were in a position where we really had to act quickly and aggressively, and unfortunately that resulted in double-digit rate increases for several years on both the sewer and the water side. So I think we're in a much better position now where these increases are much more modest and really are mostly keeping up with inflation. One comment on, and also the clean day charge would not be impacted. So I think really the overall, at least on the residential side, annual increase could be below the 6% amount. And we did for the past 2 years defer those increases due to the pandemic, but unfortunately we can't do that indefinitely. One question about the water pass-through, and my understanding is we have now implemented the increases that had been deferred for the past 2 years. We did that at a recent council meeting. But with this pass-through, I think we're anticipating that we will not have to increase the fixed charge in the foreseeable future. Is that correct, Mr. Handler?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I think the plan is to, first implement the old rates that were deferred, and then reevaluate in a few years and, see where you need to go. So this pass-through it's not for a pass-through anything above current rates. It's only once it gets to $5 above that.
$5.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Fung?
Yeah, I just want to make one quick comment regarding putting the sewer rate on our tax roll. For mostly residential, especially single family home, they tend to have a shorter lease period. And, but for the commercial and some of the mixed use building, many storefront, they tend to have much longer lease terms, and therefore some of them are on gross lease as well. So we got to be extremely careful as we consider the options of putting the sewer rate on the tax roll, both residential and the commercial property. So I think it might be valuable for us to try to reach out to some of these commercial property owners to kind of take a temperature on it as we consider putting these on the tax roll. You don't want the property owner to be stuck with a 15-year lease and yet not able to raise their rent, but yet they get stuck with the sewer rate. So just one quick comment I want to make there. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Good point. Thank you. Any more council comments? I'd like to open comments up to the public. And it appears that we have.
Mayor, could I do one more before the public? Another thing that we talked about, and I know the public has a really hard time understanding this, Millbrae has approved a number of, for us, very large projects. So the parking lots at BART are going to come back as 4 buildings, all with new meters, all of them paying into the fixed price cost, as well as their usage. So how much water they use, that's a different thing. And we talked about it at the infrastructure level, but those new customers aren't built into this yet because it's kind of an unknown. And Alex, you can explain that better than I, but hopefully when we come back a year from now and the Gateway project is fully online, and when Anton comes online and the Office Depot project comes online, we might see some adjustments of the fixed costs being spread out over more customers and at least hold the cost steady instead of climbing over time. Did I get that right, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't want to assume all this growth is coming in and say, hey, you don't need rate increases because all this massive growth is going to come in. So generally the way we prefer, we've seen agencies get in trouble doing that. Okay. Generally, we prefer to say, hey, we'll assume a low growth or minimal growth scenario. And then if you do get this growth and it comes online, it's contributing, that's going to increase your revenues. It might increase your expenses a little bit as well. But that would be built into future projections. So if you come back in a few years and, hey, let's take a look at our sewer finances. The revenues are up. Maybe you're doing a little better than you anticipated. And possibly, you might not need the exact level of rates that are being proposed now. But again, I don't want to hold that out there as some likely scenario, but that would be picked up. And that would also mean next time you do your sewer, next rate study you do, you're starting from a little bit stronger place. So, future rates are lower than what they otherwise would be.
Thank you. And it shows the importance of a city's ability to negotiate with developers, because all these projects are supposed to be improving the sewer, water, recycled water, and stormwater drains, pipe systems, so that we, the public, the people of Millbrae, don't have to do that. And sadly, some of the new housing laws have taken away that ability to do that. So thank you. I'll shut up now.
Hey, Nathan, would you like to speak?
Yes, hi. So I actually was going to make exactly the point that Councilmember Schneider made, that the Millbrae is planning for a lot of growth, and a lot of that is going to be multifamily. And my general sense is that multifamily housing uses water more efficiently and is better able to fund the infrastructure that supports it. This is sort of an idea that I've become acquainted with through strongtowns.org, sort of talking about how sort of the low density single family only development that prevails across America is sort of not as financially solvent, and the bill is coming due. I think one thing that to go back to the presentation that felt like it was missing is the chart that showed the average rates that would be paid by a single family residence. Given that so much of Millbrae's future growth is going to be multifamily, not just based on what's being planned in the specific plan, but implementing SB 9, for example, and all the state ADU laws, I think there probably needs to be some visualization of that for the benefit of us and the public to see, like, what's the average rate going to be for single family residences versus multifamily residences. But thank you.
Thank you. Jean Perry.
Hi, I just want to say that I am fully on board with proactively addressing infrastructure needs ahead of failure. I think that is failure to do that is exactly why we continue to have 2.8 million in debt service just year after year after year. And I think that's a burden that none of us want to pass on to our posterity. So, I know there's a way to be analytic about because of age, what is likely to fail. I know there are ways there are symptoms of impending failure that can be addressed. Unfortunately, they're being ignored on the east part of our city. And I also want to understand, to whose advantage will it be if our sewer charges are on our property tax bills? I mean, who gains from that? I want to hear the answer to that. I also heard Mr. Handler say that some changes are being made because apparently there were preferential rates offered to property owners. And I clearly am not one of them. But I think the public would like to know who got preferential rates. I think we need to know that, because I think we need to hold responsible the people who allowed that to happen. I just, the weight of that debt service on the Clean Bay charge, that is a preventable thing, and we can act now to stay ahead and not just wring our hands and say we need to do this. But I just don't understand why we are not getting information about which types of infrastructure are needing attention now. We just aren't getting the detail that we need to know that you're minding the store properly.
Thank you, Jean. City Manager Williams, would that be a public request act from Jean if she wanted that information?
No, we can provide that information. And I think there's also, so debt service is a fixed cost, right? So the city issued sewer bonds. Mike, I can't remember what year, maybe you can help me out here, or Alex. And they have a retirement date. And I think that those sewer bonds, the debt service on that retires in 2034. And so there isn't any way to lower the debt service other than what we've already did, and that's take advantage of lower interest rates. And so we refinanced those bonds a year and a half ago when interest rates dipped, and that's what saved us the $4 million over the life of the bond. The question was also asked, can we use reserves to buy down the debt service? Because we have such a low interest amount that we're paying on the debt service till 2034, 2044, I would not recommend that. Because we are actually issued those bonds using cheap money. So I hope that resonates and is understood. But if we had enough money to retire the bond debt, then I would even question doing that, because we have the debt at such cheap money. And what could we otherwise do with the money that would cost us more than the actual rate that we're paying on the debt service?
I'd just like to add, as City Manager Williams had mentioned, that we had initially had the debt in 2009. We actually refunded that debt in 2021, in February of 2021, when the interest rates were at their lowest. And back in 2018 as well, we had also had taken on some debt as well. They're both scheduled, I believe, to end approximately around 2038, 2039, if I'm not mistaken. And so that's something that is already at a very low rate. The 2018s were at about 3%. The TIC, or the true interest cost, for the 2021s are about 1.48%, which is the lowest I've ever seen. So I do think that from a debt perspective, we do have a pretty good handle on that. If we can look at some other creative mechanisms, we will continue to do so. We are being fiscally and financially prudent when we continue to look at our options. But as City Manager Williams mentioned, I do believe that we're getting a pretty good deal on the debt as is right now. And that is pretty fixed, and that's probably at a pretty decent rate at the current level.
And then I would just add, there's questions about what are we doing with the money. I think, as Councilmember Pappen said, that the City Council does adopt the CIP program, and where is the accountability on what project? So I will work with Mike and his group in Public Works to make sure that that is updated and we get that on the website.
Thank you. We still have Dan Quigg who would like to speak. Dan, you're on mute.
Wait, okay, you're unmuted. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm speaking on behalf of being a representative for Bosqua for You. And the reason that the debt got reduced on the water bonds was because the Bosqua group, on behalf of the 21 members of the Bosqua board, reduced that debt because we elected to refinance that bond. So I think that Bosqua should get some credit for putting that project together. And that's what you have Bosqua for. And that's why you have a representative on the board, because you're one of the 27 agencies that buy water from the city of San Francisco. Bosqua was specifically formed to protect the interests of the members of the community that buy water from the city of San Francisco to make sure that we're fairly treated. And Bosqua continues to support to make sure that those efforts are being done. And part of that was to refinance that bond to make the debt service less for all the member cities of the Bosqua agency. So thank you very much. I appreciate being able to speak on this item.
Thank you, Dan. All right, Councilmember Pappen, is your hand up to make a motion because this is an action item?
No, I'd like you to bring up the pie chart again.
Sure.
I'm having a little bit of difficulty understanding how we're actually making money, spending 2.7 million on debt service and only 2 million on infrastructure. So to me, that's difficult to comprehend.
Sorry, I thought your hand was up because you didn't know it was up. I didn't.
Yeah, so the bonds that were issued, right? So we issued X amount of money in bonds. That money's already been spent. So now we're paying that debt back. So the city issued bonds. We collected the money that went into the sewer infrastructure to make the improvements that we were required to do by the judge's order on the consent decree and on the order based on the litigation and lawsuit from baykeepers. So that money has been spent. Now we're just paying the debt service back.
See, I've still, this doesn't make sense to me. If we are trying to get on top of this, obviously we need to make these improvements as quickly as possible. And, just for a point, just putting up on the website that you worked on this street or that pipe doesn't really break down how that $2 million is being spent every year. Point two here is that if we absolutely need to try to another way to reduce the debt service so that we can use that money to help him make the capital improvements and try to get on top of this whole issue. I'm looking for an end game. And I just don't see it with San Francisco controlling the rates, other people, things that are out of our control. So this is, something I hope we can be a little more creative about. I do appreciate the step that's been taken recently to refinance the bonds, but we need to look at something else. And I've been quite amazed at how, MTC gets a ton of money, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and how they handle their debt is quite amazing. So maybe we can look at just some of the creative things they're doing, because 2.755 goes to debt service and only 2 million goes to capital improvements. There has to be a better balance.
I think we probably should, if just put numbers in front of us is one thing, but to know what the initial cost was would be, the lawsuit has been paid down and the debt has been paid down. So I think that that's an important number that's missing out of the whole figure.
Mike, what was the amount of the bond issue?
Let me grab that real quick. Just 1 second.
And just as we look at that, Madam Mayor, he's looking that up. Representations were made to this council as to the number of sewer laterals and all these things that were fixed. I would like those confirmed because I think there was a misrepresentation at some point in time. I'm not, I just want to make sure we are where we need to be and what lies ahead. so that we can see we're making progress and hopefully resolving this.
Yeah,
in one way.
I agree. And we're talking about stuff that's been happening for decades, you know, and you're bringing it all to the forefront right now. And we'll do a deep dive and we'll provide you all of that information. I kind of think it's unfair to have this, you know, quite frankly, 20 years of deferment that led to Baykeeper suing us, that we are trying to get on top of. And I guess we can do a better job explaining debt service and interest rates, and how we do our money. And this looks like a snapshot in time to me. Not, you know, Mike, this is a 1-year thing, you know, 2 million in capital improvements. I think he got that from the last adopted CIP. So that number fluctuates. You know, we could spend $6 million a year in our sewer and water. We can spend $12 million a year in our sewer and water. We have 25% of our needed sewer pipes to date that have been updated. And that's been how many decades? So only 25%. We have less than 3% of our water mains that have been updated or upgraded. And that's been a number of decades in deferment and in the making. So we're trying to get on top of it. And I think that what is being presented tonight is to maintain the status quo, to ensure that we don't take steps back, that we maintain the status quo. At 6% is what's being recommended, that we go to the protest vote to say, okay, we need this rate increase just to stay current. Now, can the city do a better job in accelerating the infrastructure projects? Yes. As a matter of fact, we brought 3 of those to the city council over the past 3 months. One is over on Aviador. Somebody had mentioned that we don't do anything on the east side. We're doing a major sewer main improvement on Aviador. It's under construction as we speak. We're also upgrading the water and sewer lines off of Richmond Drive and Lincoln Circle. There was also another major sewer main that we accelerated up off of Hillcrest, and I can't remember the cross street, but the midway up Hillcrest. So we are getting out in front of this and doing it. We can't take 20 years of deferment. You know, it's going to take a while to continue it. And so if there's a different way that we can clearly communicate this, I'll go back, you know, with staff and you know, make it either, you know, easier to understand or more clear to understand, and bring back, you know, as was mentioned, and get on our website what all the improvements are and the costs and status and timeline and start date, finish date.
Thank you, City Manager Williams. Representations have been made to us over the years. So to say 20 years and nothing's been done, we've tried. We as a council have committed to making these infrastructure investments. And so it's a little frustrating from our point of view. I appreciate all the work you're doing here. And one thing that we discussed all along here is if city staff is out there and they're doing those projects you just announced, then there needs to be not a notification to every single resident there, but put up a darn sign and tell the public what you're doing so they know how their taxpayer money is being spent, and that this is a sewer project to, you know, help whatever here. That's communication, that's transparency. We have talked about this before, and the public needs to know. Don't just, you know, staff goes out there, they, you know, they just start digging up the street and everything like that. Tell them what's happening so they know how their taxpayer money is being spent. And yes, we need more explanation on this breakdown and what has been happening. So I appreciate all that, but we need, in order to be transparent and more communicative, those wonderful projects you just described, put up a sign that says what's happening, please.
Yeah, no, good point. And I will say that, yeah, in looking at the CIP, the council has adopted in years past CIPs for projects. And it's a matter of getting those completed and getting them done for sure. So you are correct.
Yeah, and thank you. And it's just that nothing comes back to us that, you know, says this was completed. So we know, we don't know, we're not getting that information. It would be very helpful to us.
Vice Mayor, your point's well taken. I think you speak for all of us. Thank you.
So I did want to do a quick update on the wastewater bonds. Before we refunded it, the original issuances for the 2009 State Water Resources Control Board loan, as well as the COPs, Series A and B were approximately 28.4 million, 5.6 and 10.2. So that added up together, you're really looking at about, give or take, about $44 million from 2009. When we refunded that debt in itself in 2021, we issued about $20 million. So there was quite a bit of work that was actually done and what was saved. Now the 2018s remained the same because that in itself was about 18.6 million. And generally speaking, you really can't refund debt for approximately about 10 years if it's refundable at all. So that's why we took the actions that we did in refunding the 2009s for a much better interest rate.
Is that helpful, Vice Mayor? Yeah, you got to see where we started first.
Yeah, when we started, we're looking at like 3 to 4 million, almost $4 million in debt service just a few years ago, and now we're, we chopped that by about $1.2 million. So it's not too bad.
Got to chop it again.
We'll try.
Yeah, great job. All right, this is an action item, guys.
My hand is up, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm happy to make a motion, but we haven't closed public hearing, and a couple of comments to the city manager. City manager, I love our green infrastructure plan and I love the maps that we have. If we could get those maps that show the work that's been done in the Madrone Basin and the Hillcrest Basin, what's entailed, I would include all of the residential sewer lateral improvements that have been made over time. And I would include the pilot project or demonstration project we used where the city paid for residential sewer lateral improvements. And so that the public can understand that when we fix a pipe, we have less water leaking into the pipe, which is less input down at the sewage treatment plant and fewer overflows into the bay. And we did have a big overflow in the atmospheric river events of the last. It's hard to believe that we had a rainy season, but between November or October and December, if we could get all of that on the website, I know that the city has these great diagrams that really help with that. And for the public, the city's website tool is at its maximum capacity. We have high-tech workers here. If any of you work for a company that could donate $1 million, that's about what it would take to upgrade the city's website to new software and port over all of the information. We simply don't have that $1 million to make what could really be the website that we would all like to have. That was something I learned as mayor last year, but I am hopeful in bringing the public in. Many of you work for corporations that may have civic funding that could help the city with this. Thank you.
You said you were going to, there's no other public comments. So was there a motion?
Oh, a motion. We have to close the public hearing, but then yes, motion to approve. I don't have the motion directly in front of me.
A motion to authorize issuance of public hearing notice for wastewater rate changes for fiscal year 2022 to 23 to fiscal year 2026, 27, and future wholesale water rate pass-throughs.
I make that motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
May we call for a vote, please?
Madam Mayor, I'd like a follow-up as we progress with this somewhere along the line, 6 months from now, whatever we do.
Well, that will come to us again in June.
Okay, thank you.
Is that fair enough? Is that close enough?
Yes.
Okay. Did I get that right, City Manager? I kind of jumped to that. I thought I heard June. It comes back.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll call for the vote. We have a motion in a second.
Councilmember Schneider,
Aye.
Councilmember Holliber,
Aye.
Councilmember Fung,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Pappen,
Aye.
Mayor Oliva.
Aye.
The city council approves item number 9 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is a council chamber improvements and accommodations for in-person and hybrid meetings, and this is an informational item.
Yeah, Mayor, real quick, Mike Sung will be giving a quick presentation here, but this is an information item, but we are looking for direction from the council, as we progress, as we look to, move to in-person meetings here in the next several months, upgrade the council chambers for hybrid meetings. There's a lot of rewiring and cabling that needs to occur. And so we thought this also provides the opportunity, if the council concurs, to do some other physical upgrades, keeping in mind, the cost benefit and doing it as cost efficient as possible. So we wanted to just kind of share some ideas with you and get your nod if we're going in the right direction or not the right direction. So Mike does have a quick presentation here, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, City Manager Williams. Can everybody see the screen? Seems to always.
Yes,
Mike.
we see
Okay.
it.
Thank you. So we're going to talk about the council chamber improvements and the accommodations. And what we're really doing is, this is, as Tom had mentioned, this is an opportunity to really upgrade our technology and physically upgrade the council chamber, the dais, the public presentation area, and also the staff seating area. So what we're doing this for in-person and hybrid meetings. And the goal is to try to have these hybrid meetings. What we're trying to do is to have this equitable option that we want for the public in deciding how they would like to attend in a format that's comfortable for them. So whether it's them coming back into the council chambers in person or actually attending via Zoom, which is what we've been doing over the last couple of years. Now, these upgrades, as Tom had mentioned, can include cabling, rewiring, improved sound monitors, and also physical improvements to the dais, as well as the staff seating area and the public seating areas. Funding can come from various sources. We're looking at PEG funding, that's public educational and government access, as well as looking at some diverse impact fees that we can use as well. Now, this is all contingent on the governor's emergency order and on the REFF number actually staying below 0. So if the transmission rates for COVID actually go above 1, we might to kind of reevaluate this, but assuming that things kind of taper down and stay below 0, this is something that we definitely want to kind of go forward with. Now, we wanted to show a few samples. There's actually 4. This is DICE 1. I believe this is Sacramento, and this is how Sacramento's kind of looks like. And then there's a second option. These are all very, very similar. And most of them actually have an area for the public speaking area right in front, right in the middle, so you can directly face council. There's another setup that we have here for the Santa Clara Water District here. You can see that the staff tables are here on the side, and then the board is over here. And then this is kind of a back view of what it looks like from behind. You can see there's an elevated little area with plugs that we can place in, and each of the areas can have, each of the board or the council areas would have monitors. I believe this is San Joaquin, the Board of Supervisors there, San Joaquin County. So you can see what this is kind of looks like. We want to be able to have different monitors so that council or even the planning commission or the committees that would meet there should be able to see with a monitor here what the Zoom meeting's going on, as well as the presentation that's actually going to come on. So we just want to kind of give a little sampling of what we were kind of looking at and receive some direction from council. And these are kind of 4 options that we're kind of taking a look at. We look forward to hearing back from you right now.
Thank you, Mike. I think Councilmember Holliber is first.
Thank you. Do we have any potential date as to when we would go back? I'm hoping maybe we could set that date tonight. You mentioned the RF number, which is one metric. I don't think it's necessary. I mean, I'm not an epidemiologist, but I don't think it's necessarily the best metric to use, because my understanding is that shows the rate of spread. So potentially you could have a very high case rate, and if it goes down slightly, the RF number goes below 1, or conversely, you could have a very low case rate, and if that goes up slightly, it would be above 1. So I think using some other metrics, such as the case rate or the test positivity rate, or I think one thing that we discussed before was that we may go back in person once the county lifts the mask mandate, which happened nearly 2 months ago. So, I mean, personally, I would be ready to go back at our next meeting. Curious what the council's views are on this. And yeah, I think I would be in favor of doing some of the cabling and rewiring for potentially accommodating hybrid meetings. I don't think we necessarily have to upgrade the dais or the seating area. I mean, this is all equipment that has gone the last 2 years without any wear and tear. So I think that funding would be better spent elsewhere. Just my 2 thoughts, my 2 cents at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Peppin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think our equipment's been out of date for at least 10 years here. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we can barely see, there's like a pull down monitor. I think it's time for us to jump into the 21st century here. Even if we move back into the chambers here, it's difficult for the public who attends the meeting. If you look at the San Mateo chamber, they have the first presentation there. Go back to Dais 1, I think. I think it's important that the public somebody go back. Yeah, the public gets to see as they're looking forward, they're looking at us. They get to see what's being presented. Instead of everybody turning one way and then we can, are you in a position to actually see what's being presented? It's time to move ahead here. I think the dais needs to be improved. I think, as most other chambers, we have a computer in front of us. The public can see right behind us what is being presented and things. It just makes it more accessible. I believe the hybrid should continue so that people don't have to leave their homes. They can still see what's going on here. I do appreciate the increased public participation offered by Zoom. So I would hope that somehow that can be incorporated back in there. But I think this investment needs to be made, and I think it needs to really be implemented as far as cameras, big screens in front of us, screens at the dais, new microphone systems. The voting is really archaic. I remember my first meeting, nobody explained how you vote. So, I would hope that we improve the chambers overall. It can be used by planning, it can be used by a whole bunch of different things, but we need to make that investment. That's my thought.
Thank you, Councilmember Peppin. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. I pretty much agree with the Vice Mayor. At least it depends what seat we're sitting at. Sometimes the motion trigger doesn't work. You try to vote, it doesn't work. All of that makes us look like we're a teeny little old-fashioned city. I like this particular example. I like the public speaking from the front. I will say another city hall that is smaller. These all look pretty big. Mountain View rebuilt their city hall, their 4th time rebuilding their city hall. It's beautiful. It's a smaller chamber, but they put the speaker off to the side, which is really awkward in seeing the presentation at the same time on that. I would also wonder, City Manager, I believe we probably pre-COVID allowed the school district to use the chamber for free. Planning Commission is there. I would like to see Park and Rec Commission there so that we televise, especially our critical commissions, Planning and Park and Rec, and maybe someday BPAC. but maybe we should rent this out. I was going to bring this up. Pre-COVID, the roundtable used the Chet Cootie room. It's one of the few rooms big enough in the county to fit representatives of a regional meeting that big. Maybe we've always offered it for free. Maybe we should think about charging these entities and make it as a revenue stream. But I would encourage you to spend what we need to spend to enter the mid 21st century. And we do need a screen that council can see. The screen for council is always really weird. So keep that. In the examples, I know there was a screen off to the side, but if there's something that could help council too, so that we don't look like chickens swinging around, that would be lovely.
May I clarify here? I believe what we're seeing here is that each council member would have a computer in front of them, so you're not struggling to see anything.
Which we already had, right?
Yeah.
Well, we did kind of, because, you know, because we've gone paperless, all of my notes are inside the document and or my handwritten ones. But if we're doing like a big planning project, you're flipping back and forth anyway. But yeah, if you could consider that, make sure we have space. And it would be nice to see each other instead of kind of swinging around, you know, trying to see who's got their hand up.
Is there a spot for my dogs? Okay, let's see. Councilmember Fung, did you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to raise my hand. Sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I still remember looking at some of the previous videos, you know, whether it's Planning Commission or the council pre-pandemic, the resolution is relatively low. So I think it is time for us to upgrade our cameras to a more high definition camera so that, you know, as we review these video later, we can actually see people's faces. We can actually see what's being presented. I think that's, you know, I think it is time for us to, you know, sort of more focus on the future here. Also looking at this particular picture on dais number 1, those 2 big screen in the back would be very beneficial, I think, as we, and also some speakers as well, so that, you know, as we move forward with the hybrid meeting mode, this would really enable, you know, those who participate in the meeting in the council chambers to also see what's, you know, being, who is participating on Zoom or other forms of hybrid online mode. So that would, you know, bring everything together. I think that's valuable. You know, having the staff table on the side would certainly be good, because I think we, you know, our current council chamber has quite a bit of width, so we can sort of reconfigure that a little bit to make it a little bit more accessible. Also, the table in dais number 4, if you can fast forward 3 slides. Yeah. So that raised table with some coverages, you know, that'll enhance us to put in some electrical connections and internet connections so that we can plug in a monitor or maybe a laptop, so that we can put, it's easier for council members to see the online participants. Sometimes looking at the monitors a little far away might be a little difficult. So having a small screen so you can see everything as the council members participate in a meeting would be valuable. I think it's important that the participant be able to give presentations from the middle of the room as well. I think in some of the previous pictures, at least on dais 1, they show that. I think most of the pictures that you show have the presenter to be in the middle of the room, so that will be valuable, and allowing them to be able to put in their presentations and show them on the big screen that are behind the council dais would also be valuable. So I do agree that some update, you know, to help bring us, you know, into the future would be a good investment.
Thank you. I think I'm going to open this up to the public comments. City Manager, you had your hand up. Can I go to the public first?
Yes, sure, Mayor. No problem.
Wayne Lee, former Mayor Wayne Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of City Council. Yes, some of the things also is that this is an issue about transparency, and access to the public too. I just realized as being on the dais that the public didn't see a lot of things that we were looking at that were not available. It'd be nice if there was a table where people can lay out presentations or pictures or whatever, and it can be seen by everybody in the public. Or whatever the council is looking at, it can be projected as well. We try to, I know it's been, the staff's been trying to do that as much as they can, as well as it'd be nice to be able to move the speaker table around out of the way so that you can use the room for multiple presentations or multiple uses. And I seen that Brisbane, their whole dais can be taken apart and moved around, and they still have the same functionalities as you all are espousing. So I would, it's really important to, not just because it has to be functional, but because the public deserves transparency and they deserve to see what's going on. Thank you.
Mayor, you're muted.
I'm muted. I'm sorry. Nathan Chan, please.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Mayor Oliva and the council for the opportunity to speak on this. I wanted to bring up two examples of only two examples that I'm aware of cities that have gone back to hybrid meetings, which are Foster City and San Jose. Would be interesting, I think, if staff could, if they haven't already studied them, to at least understand what sort of changes they made to accommodate hybrid meetings in both those cities. I have not attended a San Jose council meeting, but I have attended at least one Foster City meeting. And what they had like a camera where you could see the entire dais, or it was shifting amongst the council members, and then each council member had, I guess, a laptop in front of them, so then you also got a view of them directly. It was a little weird, but it's an option that's available. I was also kind of surprised at the presentation in terms of it seemed like what was being proposed was a potentially more expansive council changer modification than what is the strict minimum necessary to accommodate hybrid meetings. I think it might be interesting to at least have a breakdown of this is the minimum requirement with the current configuration to support hybrid meetings adequately, as well as a more expansive set of improvements that might be nice to improve the quality of meetings and council conduct, but aren't necessarily strictly necessary for hybrid meetings themselves. I just think it's, I think it would be good and clear to separate those two goals. And that's all that I had to offer at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Gina?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this also allows us an opportunity to for more bilingual presentations. So especially if we have some screens in the back, maybe subtitles or something. I don't know if that's been looked at, but I think that might be important in giving instructions and progressing along these lines. I did like the idea that former Mayor Wayne Lee had about having a dais that's removable in some circumstances, because I could see that happening. We're not dealing with a big, huge room, sadly, but doing what we can here. And I don't think we're looking at big, enormous chairs that are presented in some of these pictures, because there's just not enough room. But that just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Hulliber, you're up again.
Okay, thank you. Apparently I'm in the minority in this debate on this issue, but I suppose the question then is, is the return to in-person or hybrid meetings contingent on improvements to the council chambers? Because it could take, several months to rebuild the dais and do some of these changes that are being requested. So can we potentially set a date for returning in person and have it be sooner rather than later?
I have a little comment to your comment there.
Go ahead.
It's kind of difficult that now that we have the opportunity to, attract up to, 85 people at a meeting one time. With tonight, we're running a little later than normal too. No, about normal, but there's like 35 people on the Zoom. To think that we'll eliminate that is kind of.
They didn't say eliminate. I think, as for example, as what the public commenter mentioned, there may be ways to do it without having to do all of the improvements right off the bat to be able to still accommodate.
I would agree. We don't have to redecorate the place before we go back, but we definitely have to be up and running. In my opinion.
And I'm sorry, Councilmember Schneider. So real quick, another committee I'm on, it's voluntary for the commissioners to attend in person because some people still feel uncomfortable. And then it also comes down to you show up on the Zoom screen twice. So the people that are there are on the screen and then everybody else is on Zoom. It's kind of weird. And you have to announce are there any raised hands in the audience? Or do we have any raised hands on Zoom? So it is being done in that sense, but one commission I'm on, it's voluntary at this point in time, and we may want to look at that. But yeah, this is going to take time, but I do think it's worthwhile. Thank you. I'm sorry, Councilmember Schneider.
Yeah, the good point, a good point to the county committees that we're all on is we've taken a few cars off the road because I know that yeah, there you go, Councilmember Schneider. It's especially in like something like airport land use at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and people from Redwood City have to drive all the way up to Burlingame. It's been really convenient for those members and for our environment. So we should take that into consideration too. Councilmember Schneider.
Well, actually 2 points. One of the diagrams showed, I think it was the first slide, showed sort of a shelf in front of us. What I've hated about having a laptop in front of me is I feel like the public sitting in our council chambers can't really see us. So whatever you design in terms of the dais, keep that in mind, that big screen in front of us can act as a impediment to them being able to see what we're doing, what our facial expressions are. The other one, I'm on a state commission, a statewide recycling commission, and it was a major topic last week that the governor is not going to keep improving it and that we may be forced to going back to in person. However, because California is the 5th largest world economy, we get presenters from all over the world talking about what we're doing at the state, at our level, because it has worldwide impacts. So we hope that we can stay virtual, because it really increases transparency and participation, but we don't know if the governor's going to allow that. I meant to mention that to you, City Manager. That is a concern for us at the state level. Maybe it's different at the local level that we can do a hybrid. I would be in favor of waiting, going back in person until we can do a hybrid, because I think it just really does increase participation on that. So my points.
Thank you. City Manager?
I was just going to mention it.
Sorry, one more thing. I agree with Councilmember Schneider here. I like having, the diet where you have some like barrier there, but yeah, we do have to be concerned that the laptops then are not so high that the public can't see our faces. So that can be done 2 different ways, where you lower the desk, but you still have that. So I think that would be important in moving forward.
If I can cut in on the Vice Mayor, I might be taller than the other women on the council, but my legs are shorter. So my feet do not touch the floor in our chairs to allow me to be tall enough to see over the counter on there, which sounds really weird, but keep that in mind that there are many different body types.
City Manager?
Yeah, I was just going to offer just some information here. And maybe our city attorney, John Cashman, can weigh in. I think the communication about, hybrid meetings or non-hybrid meetings. It all depends on the governor's order. So if the city council chooses to go to in-person meetings and the governor still has the emergency declaration, I do believe then the council member as elected officials can choose to either participate remotely or not, because the Brown Act would cover that during the emergency declaration. If the governor lifts the emergency declaration and the Brown Act is not amended, correct me if I'm wrong, City Attorney Castman, the council members, the elected members themselves would have to attend in person unless there's some, as some of our council members in the past have traveled and they attend council meetings remotely, and you have to post the public notice at the location that you're at and invite the public in, no matter what part of the world or country you're in. That could all change depending on some of the Brown Act amendments that are being discussed. So as of right now, if the council would like to go back to in-person meetings, I think it's okay, because we'd still follow the emergency declaration, and it's just up to the city council to go in person or not. In any event, yeah, we are planning to rewire, recable the chambers for hybrid meetings in the long run, right? And so I think that there's concurrence tonight to move forward with that. Also taking the opportunity to make some physical improvements for comfort level, not only of the council, the planning commission, but also public viewing and access. And so, what we'll do is we'll bring, those costs and those plans, preliminary plans, back to the city council for an actual action item. Tonight, we just wanted to check in to see if we were going down the right path, spending our time, and resources to do this. And it sounds like, we are, and then we'll come back after some more due diligence. But I don't know if our city attorney has more to add in terms of the governor's order or not, really addressing Councilmember Hollibur's comments. And I guess my thought for planning purposes, and I'm just throwing it out there, more brainstorming, is with this, Philadelphia actually just started the mask mandate again. I don't know if you all read that today. And so I was thinking that with the August recess, maybe the September 13th would be a good date to target to come back physically. We've also received some requests of when we are going to open up City Hall without appointment. And my thought there would be June 13th. That's the date that our new recreation center opens to the public. And so we would have an opening of all city facilities to the public without reservation, and use that June 13th date as our objective. So just throwing it out there for discussion purposes, and hand it over to Joan Castman, our city attorney.
Sure. I'll just add my 2 cents. No one can anticipate what will happen with the governor's executive order. We will watch what happens with this newest variant, and I'm sure his folks are doing the same. But what is happening at the state level is that the legislature is considering some amendments to the Brown Act, and I think that these are changes that make a lot of sense, changes that we have come through COVID realizing that the public meetings can be carried on well with partial hybrid or virtual. So what the Brown Act, I think it's AB 1944, but there is an act right now, and we could come next meeting and ask you to support it if you're interested, to relax the Brown Act in terms of teleconferencing. I mean, right now, the teleconference requirements are such that if you're not in person at a meeting, the agenda of the meeting has to notice where you are. You could access the meeting remotely through teleconferencing, but the agenda has to say where you are, and at the place you are, it must be accessible, and you must post a notice so that members of the public, allegedly the idea is, can come, share the meeting experience with you wherever you are. And that, I think, makes very little sense anymore. So this amendment is going to remove those requirements so that You as a council member, public officials, elected officials serving on councils and boards can virtually attend meetings and don't have to be in an accessible place and post a notice and entertain anybody, any member of the public who might want to join you. So that is, I'm sorry, my mother's calling me. I've got to tell her, not have to tell her later. So that's one change, and I think it's going to pass. And if the council is interested, you might want to weigh in, and I could bring it to you next meeting, and you can support it. So I think, you know, and making very clear that public comment can be conducted virtually. The Brown Act is not clear that public comment means that the members of the public have to be present. It just says that public bodies must allow members of the public to comment on matters that come before them and any matter that may pertain to the jurisdiction. Doesn't say where. I mean, I don't think anyone thought that that was an issue, but now it's become an issue. And I think this new law, this new bill will also make clear that public comment can be conducted virtually, which I think does open up government transparency and is a wonderful thing.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Gina, is your hand up or do you, okay, would you like to comment?
Yeah, one quick comment here. City manager referenced not opening up City Hall till June 13th, and I think we need to do it way before then. There is an election coming up the first part of June. I do think City Hall needs to be accessible sometime in May for various reasons. So I would hope that we could open City Hall a lot sooner and not wait for the recreation center. In and of itself, recreation center is going to have its own wonderful kickoff, and that'll be good. But I think we need to be more accessible to the public. And this is not an agenda item, but I would hope we could do that sooner. Thank you.
I would agree wholeheartedly with that. I think, you know, that's probably the simplest thing to change. Just unlock the door and make sure there's somebody near the reception, at least one of the reception counters. I also think September is far too conservative for planning a return to in-person meetings. And we're already having plenty of in-person large events. We had a large Lions Club event with over 200 people. There's a large MEF gala this past weekend indoors with no masks. So I don't see how council meetings are really that different.
I think it's more of getting, I think it's more of making sure that we can virtually accommodate the crowd that doesn't want to come out. That's the way
I think that can be done before the dais is replaced. Just my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we get some information back because this is what, April, May, June, July.
Yeah. Talking about 5 months from now. It's already been.
Who knows?
2+ years.
Councilmember Schneider, is your hand up or is it?
Yeah, my one, I hear what you all are saying in terms of opening. And then I think of the couple times that we did have a COVID outbreak in administration or in public works. City manager, what did we have to bring in cleaning crews to completely sterilize the facilities at that point? And if we do open up, even as they're talking about this next surge, and I know we're all tired of it, but would we need to factor in the fact that we may have to close back down? I think St. Carl, one of the cities, they opened up one meeting, closed back down. I'm guessing they had to sterilize everything. So that's just a cost. Do we want to pay that cost right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say not as much as, you know, in March of 2020, we've learned a lot about the virus and have taken direction, you know, from OSHA and our county medical officer and CDC. So not to the extent that we used to, but we can certainly take precautionary measures. I've talked to the unions, you know, and staff when we do open up to put install plexiglass. Public Works is prepared and ready to do that. So we will put in some safety precautions, and we can get open relatively quick. I mean, we can get open within the week. But we have been taking a very precautionary wait and see approach. I'll say that I mean, I haven't received any complaints about our accessibility, to the public as we've invested in software for, online permitting and that type of thing. People can, contact us for, appointments. There are a few people that still do like to carry their water bills and sewer bills, to the city and pass them over. So yeah, I and just the pure convenience, I get it. So if that's the direction of the city council, we can, I'll get moving on that, put all the safety precautions in place that we know, would be beneficial today. And I think Councilmember Snyder, it's not going overboard. Like when this first happened, we know a lot and have a lot of information from the medical field of what to do and take those precautionary measures.
I was at Pete's Coffee today and every table was occupied and none of the patrons had a mask on. The staff had masks on and it was lovely to see. I had my mask on. I'm still waiting for medical results and I have a 94-year-old at home. So I guess I'm kind of in the middle. I'm still a little more conservative. When you go to an MEF event, you kind of know everybody's there. When you're in City Hall, you don't know who's going to come in the door. You don't know if they're vaccinated at all on that. So I'm okay if you choose to go more conservatively. I kind of wondered, I looked at Pete's and said, this is great, but I wonder if we'll have a little outbreak. And maybe it's time to get over that. Maybe it's endemic thinking now and we need to get past that. But I think we're still in that experimental mode.
I mean, my gut feeling is let's give it a couple of more weeks and see what happens on the East Coast, and see how if it moves west and see what other cities are doing. And, the state of California and the county, I think as one of the members of the public said, there's only one city right now that is actually open to the public and having in-public meetings, and that's Foster City. But we can adjust and maneuver anyway. This is such a hard thing, right? We've never faced this before. And I can assure you, if we do open up, we'll take all the precautionary measures appropriate.
Well, it sounds like for now, the direction is to see how we can get some wiring completed in the council chambers. And you could come forward with some designs for future use. And as far as City Hall really wasn't, opening City Hall was not really on the agenda for, so we could bring that up at a further date. And
Madam Mayor.
You hold on here. And this is just an informational item. So I think everybody's kind of given their opinions on split opinions in our group, but all valuable. So why don't we just take it a half a step ahead and let our city manager do some homework on regards to the wiring. And we also have to consider our staff too. So, I think that their input could be valuable as well. And that would be something that our city manager could gather. Yes, Gina.
MEF was a wonderful event. Everybody was required to be vaccinated and they still had an outbreak. So just an FYI on that front, I do think if we are opening up City Hall, we put a sign on the door as they have at Costco. You can come in without a mask if you are vaccinated. And everybody who attended the wonderful MEF event had to show proof of vaccination. So things are still happening. We do want to be careful, but I do think, contrary to our city manager here, I have heard from some public, when is City Hall going to open? So some people would like to see that if we can, safety is first and foremost, but we talked about, and I know City Hall has some air purifiers. So we may also want to include that in the chambers at a future event.
73 of them to be exact, if I remember.
Might need 74 if we go back to the chambers. So thank
you. Joan, is your hand up or no? Okay.
Can I say something, Madam Mayor?
Oh, please. Yes.
Thank you. I think, in terms of, I know the reopening of the city hall is not on the agenda, but just, a couple quick suggestions, if I may. I think some of the most, valuable part of the access to the city hall would be between the planning desk, the building desk, and the public works desk. I mean, we've been doing a great job in allowing people to drop off their water bills and their payments and stuff like that. So, but if we consider reopening, I think the first step, we can maybe even consider a multi-step approach, more than one step approach, where we can start thinking about just office hours, between the planning, building, and the public work desk. And then obviously plexiglass and all that stuff would certainly be valuable. So, but at least have some limited access to begin with. That will alleviate some of the, that will help, a lot of those, residents who needs to come in and get certain business done. So.
Thank you. City Manager, do you have good direction?
I do, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, then with all hands down, can we move on to item 11, please? 2022 Citizens Academy Overview, and this is informational as well. Do we have a report, please?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to introduce Isabel Carlos. She is our new interim Human Resources Director, and she's been working on pulling together Citizens Academy program, and we'd like to present that to the City Council this evening for information and feedback. So, Isabel.
Yes, thank you, City Manager Williams. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. I know it's late in the evening, but my presentation is short tonight. Yes, thank you, Eduardo. So the city is pleased to introduce the first ever Citizens Academy here in the city of Millbrae. Through the Citizens Academy, the city, next slide, please. The city hopes to promote positive community service, leadership, and civic engagement. Next slide. The Academy will serve to fulfill various goals. First of all, it's going to educate citizens about city governance. Participants are going to learn about government structures, department operations, and of course, the processes that the city undertakes to deliver superior services to the community. It will also include the process for elected representation under district elections, which is a new process to the city. So as participants gain the necessary knowledge to provide service to their community, they're going to contribute on a positive role, and we're going to be developing future leaders that will be prepared for positions of responsibility, whether it's as volunteers to serve as commissioners in city committees, or even as appointed or elected positions. Next slide, please. The program will be conducted in a series of 6 sessions that are going to take place on Saturdays between the hours of 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. The program is scheduled to start on May 21st, and it will culminate on July 9th. I did want to spend a little bit of time going over the program so that you can be familiar with that. Session 1, as mentioned, that would kick off on May 21st, would be an orientation to the program, an introduction to local government. We would have presentations on structure for the city council, city manager's office, city attorney. And session 2, the city clerk would all conduct their presentation on their operations. We would also cover district elections. Part 2 of session 2 would be the city commissions and committees structure. Session 3 would provide insight on the internal support departments such as human resources and the finance department. And we would have a dedicated presentation on the budget process. It would be a standalone presentation because it's such a popular topic for discussion on the allocation of funds for the city. And of course, it's a critical process to the deployment of the services and projects for the city. Session 4 would be presentations by the Community Development Department and the Recreation Department. Session 5 would be presentations by the Public Works Department and Police and Fire Departments. And the program would culminate on July 9th with a closing session and a graduation ceremony for the participants. We would not have sessions on July 11th due to the ribbon cutting for the recreation facility, or July 4th to allow the program participants and city staff to enjoy that national holiday with their families. Next slide, please. There's only a few requirements for the program. We will have an age requirement. You must be 18 years old to participate, and you must be a City of Millbrae resident. We are requiring that participants attend all six sessions in order to graduate, unless there's extenuating circumstances on any one participant. The program does have capacity for 35 participants, and we will accept enrollments on a first come, first served basis. Next slide, please. Our goal with this program is that it facilitate an interactive learning and a behind the scenes experience for participants to gain the necessary knowledge to contribute to the Millbrae community in a positive way. This concludes my presentation. Next slide, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you. Do you do this in other cities as well?
It's done in other cities as well. We actually research quite a few cities, and some of them have longer programs, some of them have shorter programs, but it is done in other cities as well.
And the 35 people is enough that can participate. If there was overkill of 50 people that wanted, we could probably put in, you know, another session of this.
Yes, we were thinking on logistics, 35 would be about right. And when we researched the other cities, it was also between 30, 35 participants. And if there was interest for an additional, then on direction, we could have additional sessions, or we could look to see if there would be ways to increase capacity to a greater number.
Good, this is awesome. So let's go to council first. Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. Interim Director Carlos, this is lovely. I think it looks great. Two kind of questions. Our YAC members are from middle school and high school, so they're generally going to be under 18. If we have room, is there a way to allow some younger people who might want to get involved? Especially if they're serving on YAC.
Right, the YAC. Most of the cities, and not necessarily that we would have to do it that way, but they do offer it to 18 years and older. So that is one of the requirements that is consistent. I don't know if there's direction from the council for us to open it to younger individuals, then we could look into doing that, or maybe a modified program for them. But as far as this program, this is a requirement that we're suggesting. Again, it's to the council's pleasure.
I'm a graduate of Leadership Mountain View, which is a fabulous program that also includes kind of overview of community groups too, how to get involved in community groups. I'm not saying we have to do it. I know we're trying to get this so that we've got people running for office in the new district. So, but we might want to consider adding that under, I think it's the second to the last class, you've got police and fire. Are you going to include Millbrae CERT in that?
We can coordinate that with police to be a part of it.
Millbrae CERT, we have a phenomenal program that had some issues last year being part of CCFD. I would love to see us reach out to Millbrae CERT and make sure they're at the table. It's a critical part of our emergency response.
Understood.
With that, congratulations. I think it looks great.
We can include that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see the other community groups having been through a program, and I already wrote to the city manager. The Mountain View program is heavily reliant on corporate partnerships, and that if this is successful the first time, we can always continuous improvement on that. And as we get new corporate partners into Millbrae,
Sure.
so good luck.
We thought there would be quite a bit of interest in the academy, and that's why we reserved it for 18 years of, and older. But we could potentially try to come up with a modified version for the youth in the future.
I work with a number of Millbrae young people, and I am amazed at how mature they are. So just keep it in mind. If there's some openings, you might want to reach out to young people.
Yes, they
who
absolutely
want to
have
serve
a lot to
in
contribute.
government. It's a very rare thing for children to say, "Hey, I want to work in government," or I want to volunteer. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. They want their voice to be heard. I've seen that time and time again.
Well, you're new, but Congresswoman Spear said at something recently, the real concern, because schools have dropped civics from their programs, the real need to reach out to young people about civic responsibility and voting. Again, continuous improvement for the next time.
Thank you.
Isabel, there's no cost to this, right?
The program will be free for participants. There is a cost to the city, of course, to logistics,
right,
and yeah,
Meals.
the setup and everything. Meals, primarily meals, and some materials for the participants.
So I know that we want to attract as many people as we can, but would it be advantageous so that people finish if we rebated them, if they refund them, if they finish, or is there a concern that we'll get 35 people in the beginning and then we don't get them to finish?
We're asking that they come to all 6 sessions in order to graduate, and that could be an incentive for their attendance. But if the direction is to charge a fee and get rebated, then we could look into that as well.
I just like when people have skin in the game.
Right. There's more commitment.
Councilmember Peppin?
No T-shirt for you unless you graduate. Just kidding. So I think in a wonderful job. Thank you very much. I do think, and I don't know if this is included here, whether you're talking about city council members or candidates, I'm hoping there's an FPPC, fair political practices aspect to the requirements for somebody who's running for office, and also for existing council members. We have to go through training every year or every 2 years or something. That's a part of being a council member. Also a part of running for office. There are specific requirements that if you're going to run for office, in order to maintain transparency and not violate the FPPC laws, because nobody wants to do that, you must be very, very careful. And you may be able to get assistance from the FPPC. They have videos and things like that maybe our staff doesn't have to do, but you can show the videos as part of your program. Very, very important, and a reality to anybody running for office or anybody who is in office. So I hope you're able to include that somewhere in the academy. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Angelina, you're next. I think you're going to sign up.
I'm definitely interested. But, we spoke about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the beginning, and a couple things stand out to me. 6 Saturdays in a row for any parent just makes it almost impossible to even have that opportunity. I don't know if there's a way to look at making it a variety of weekends and evenings, mix it up to make it more accessible for folks. Another thing is, if we really are at a capacity of 35 and we're just doing first come, first serve, that really is going to go to the most privileged people with the easiest access and knowledge to something like this. And I'd love to find a way to make sure that we're truly getting the word out. I know there's a lot of community folks that are willing to get the word out to more than, just kind of the usual suspects, to really have a truly diverse group of people from across the city. So I don't know if maybe there's a commitment to a certain number of seats from each district, or just ways to really make it equitable across the city. And another thing you guys are talking about, commitment. I've worked in volunteer management for 20 years. And I can tell you that if someone simply has to put in a form and sign up, it's really hard to get them to fulfill that full commitment. But if there's just something like a phone interview or a contract or just something that makes it a little bit harder to get in, you're more likely to have a long-term commitment. And I'm happy to talk with folks about that offline, but got 20 years of experience with trying to get people to make that six-month volunteer commitment and follow through. So thank you.
Very good point. Jean, you're up next.
Great. I have a suggestion for the curriculum. As an appointed member of the County Behavioral Health Board, I am required, as are all elected, to complete the California ethics training every 2 years. And this is something that you could ask participants to do, not during class time, but I think it's a topic of the concept of avoiding even the appearance of conflict of interest, it is a really important part of serving your community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is great feedback. As we continue to develop the program, we'll try to remember everything and incorporate solutions for the concerns that were voiced.
Isabel, we have one more, I see one more hand from Michael Kelly.
Hi, thank you, Isabel. Great presentation. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm on the city website now, searching for Citizens Academy. Nothing shows up. How does one sign up? What are the plans for that? Is one part of the question, I guess, for Ms. Carlos. And the other part has to do, and I realize we can't really have a back and forth exchange, so I'll put out there as well that with the upcoming election, I think there's some deadlines of when a candidate would need to file for the November election to run for City Council District 2 and 4, and this graduation takes place July 9th. Is that going to conflict with when a potential candidate would need to have their paperwork in, or is graduating for this a requirement to run for office? Can you elucidate on that a bit, please? Thank you.
Well,
maybe
yeah,
it's not a requirement. Go ahead. Sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask if I could answer that, because I don't want to make this, we want to encourage people to run for office, not make any requirements any harder. So go ahead, City Manager, you can.
I was going to say, this isn't, no, it's not a requirement. I think August 11th is the deadline to submit for the November election. And
that is correct.
And I guess this is, this is a Citizens Academy, right? And so, one session will be, yes, how do you run for office? And I think as Vice Mayor Pappen said, I think bringing in FPPC information but general government, right? What is the Brown Act? What is conflict of interest? How does local government operate? Perhaps we should have just a separate session independent of this and open it up for information that anybody wants to run for office, right? And we kind of keep that separate. So maybe we can look into doing something like that for a few Saturdays. That might be helpful as well. Because this shouldn't be just, somebody who wants to run for office. I mean, it could be somebody that's just interested in civics. How does, when are the council meetings? Are they the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday of every month? And what happens? And how do you, can I actually speak? And, so it's just an overall know your government and learn kind of soup to nuts, all the departments, how the departments operate, how a budget is, what's the difference between general fund and an enterprise fund, what are the restrictions, under, gas tax funding, what's our revenue source for roads, where do your tax dollars go? Probably the biggest myth in Millbrae is that I hear people pay their taxes, but only 16 cents on every dollar of property tax that you pay comes back to your local government. Well, where does the other 84 cents go? 84 cents go. And so that was the objective of this. But it sounds like there may be a need to have a separate noticed information session on just running for office.
I think
So I don't know what they.
that's a leadership academy, and there are like for the public, there are leadership academies around that people can participate in. A lot of different groups encourage leadership in their groups, and they run them. So, I mean, offline, I can help anybody that is interested in something like that, and maybe pave the way to a leadership academy, because leadership is a little bit different than this with regards to, we're not grooming a candidate. We're just teaching that we're letting the citizens know how the city works, if that's the right way to say it. And
Yeah,
it's actually quite interesting. And I don't usually tell my own story, but I will for a second here. When I was running for office the first time, the city manager at the time happened to, I met her after hours, coincidentally, and I got to tag around her for a little bit to see the different departments. And it's probably one of the most eye-opening experiences I've ever had, because it's like your first time on the job. And there's a lot you see here on the Zoom, or a lot you see at ribbon cuttings and downtown and different things that go on in the city that this council will participate in. But what happens in the city with our staff is a machine of things. And I mean, this is not just for leadership or elections. This is about, getting engaged with what goes on a daily basis with the city. But the Leadership Academy, I can, if anybody that's listening wants to get some advice on how to take those courses or where those are offered, hopefully now that they're still offering after COVID, there's a lot of groups that like to groom their candidates for leadership. So I think Councilmember Schneider kind of alluded to that too. But and right up the same alley with can the young kids get involved? That's grooming leadership. It's all great. But this is really exciting for our city, and I think we're one of the only cities doing this, and it was driven by the district elections. So something good came out of something bad, right? Councilman, or excuse me,
Madam Mayor, there was a question on the marketing, and just to address that, Public Information Officer Justine Bleeker has a comprehensive marketing plan that's going to kick off tomorrow. So expect to see more information on the Academy as soon as tomorrow on the website, social media, and there's a variety of other sources where she's going to market the program.
Perfect. Thank you. Vice Mayor Peppin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll remind the public, this is an informational item, so we can discuss it. This is a lot, work's gone into this, and it's a work in progress. We're trying to be informative and really help the public understand the operations of a city here, which I do think is very important. I will also point out that the elections office runs seminars on the requirements to run for office. The city clerk is your friend here if you are running for a city position, whether it's school board or city council or something like that. And I really compliment everybody for doing this. And please, Isabel, if there's a way for us to know if you become oversubscribed, that we might be able to expand this. And as a final note, I do agree with Angelina. That's a lot of Saturdays. If we can change it up in one way or another, that would be helpful to anybody who has a full-time job or just needs to spend time with their family. I think I think they do that with CERT too. It's like, they vary the times and dates and things like that. I think that's going to be important. So I would recommend we try to do that here. And is there been a discussion of maybe videotaping this so that somebody who might have to miss something, or your kid's softball game or baseball or something is at the exact same time, that would be helpful, because the whole idea here is to really be helpful to the community and get everybody interested in city operations. So I really thank the public for their comments. I appreciate this is informational, and the public comments do help us in making these programs better and beneficial. Thank you.
Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually also agree with Angelina. I hadn't thought about that many Saturdays, with the exception of June 11th for the grand opening of the rec center, that could be a problem. On that, usually the traditional leadership classes are actually during the workday, and you get commitment from your employer to let you attend. But that might, I don't know if you can do it before you announce the program tomorrow. I would say that this is continuous improvement too, and maybe the next time around. I like the videotaping idea. I will say one of the best parts and the most informative for me through Leadership Mountain View was the police ride-along, which was a requirement for graduation. And on my ride-along, it was the 1-year anniversary of a gang murder. So it was actually a hopping night. It was really, really interesting. It lets you see through the eyes of our police officers on that. Tom, in terms of when I ran in 2013, there were 4 of us candidates, and the city manager invited us into the Magnolia Room and gave us a binder of what they thought were the critical documents for a potential council member to be familiar with. Maybe that's something that we could do for anybody interested in running for office. What are the things to kind of get your main hands around, which of course is always scary when you are handed the general plan on that, but it's critical that people understand the planning documents. So my 10 cents.
Thank you. Jean Perry.
I'm kind of assuming that the format for this will be on Zoom, since we're talking about possibly videotaping it.
Can somebody?
Or ensuring MCTV is going to tape it.
Can somebody?
No, it wasn't. It was. It's being planned as a live program. But hearing some of the feedback, then we'll look to see if we can videotape some of the sessions, streamline them. I have to discuss this with IT to see what the city's capability is currently. But it is scheduled to be a live program on site. We actually have the presentations at different city facilities to provide a tour, if you may, by doing it at different facilities.
Thank you. Jean, did you have anything else to say? You had 3 minutes. That was 30 seconds.
Just
anything else?
Trying to get get the information about the program.
Perfect. Okay, so that I don't see any other hands raised. I would imagine that if anybody has additional questions, that emails can be answered easily.
Of course, yes.
Yes.
And we'll provide the information as well through with the marketing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, the plan was, Mayor, once we had this conversation with the city council this evening, then, if there's concurrence, then we'll move full speed ahead, I think, as Isabel had mentioned. We just want to have this meeting and this discussion this evening before we launched into it. So that's why nobody will find anything on the website, because nothing's been posted yet.
Sounds great. Looking forward to watching the success of it. Okay, we have one more item on our agenda, and with no.
Can I move approval of item 12?
No, it's information. Oh,
no,
my
it's not.
God. Sorry.
I'll second that.
We all know what it's about.
It's a great thing.
I know it's been before us before.
We have a public comment though.
Okay, so we're just resolution to reopen the Markey Mengelson Arthritis and Rehabilitation Therapy Pool.
Mackie Michelson.
Mackie Michelson.
Yeah. So it's
just so the public knows.
Do we have any other council comments? We have a
There's
motion and we have a second. Gina, wait. We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any council comment? All right, we have some hands raised. Astrid, you're first. Astrid? You're on mute, Astrid.
I thought I just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Astrid. Just very quickly, my last name is Vartaresian, and many people will recognize that's an Armenian name. I'm 100% Armenian, and I so appreciate the earlier proclamation that was made for the genocide. I just wanted to add my thanks to you on that. As far as the Mickelson Pool, I'm one of many who has spent the last 2 years now fighting Sutter to try to reopen this incredibly important pool for us. While Sutter has basically stonewalled us, ignored us, dismissed us, we are collectively exhausted, we're diminished, we're failing, some of us are dying. And this has been very hard on us physically, emotionally. And over this period, we've learned there are a lot of politicians running in this county on elder care and helping the disabled, but we've really learned who really is on our side. And this shows us that you are on our side, and we so much appreciate it. And I just wanted to add my thanks to those of the others who really are wanting to get this pool reopened and doing everything we can to make that happen. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Yes, we're on your side. Lindsay, you're next.
Hi, I'd like to echo Astrid's sentiments. I'm the president of Warm Water Wellness, which is a nonprofit that was born out of the need to advocate for the reopening of this important, well-used and much beloved facility, which, by the way, was financed by $4 million of community donations. So I'd like to also offer my deep and heartfelt appreciation for your support. This resolution joins with the Sequoia Healthcare District passed a resolution, and also the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. So again, we are deeply thankful for your help. And for so many people, this has been a health catastrophe for physical and mental health, as Astrid mentioned, over the last 2 years. And the Mickelson therapy pool is just the tip of the iceberg. It's not just the therapy pool that Sutter has closed. Sutter has eliminated 22 other programs. We recently received a list from the Peninsula Healthcare District that I will email to you. And as a city, there are a lot of services that you're going to need to replace, and much that you'll need to do for your aging and disabled residents as a result of what Sutter is doing. And I will also send to you a white paper that our organization is currently in the process of putting together, a white paper that thoroughly explains the issue and offers a list of minimum specifications that are appropriate for warm water therapy pools, and that explains the difference between a therapy pool and a swimming pool. So we'll send you a copy of this, and it's intended to offer some guidance with the architectural and engineering issues that might come up. So we hope that you will consider this information in your planning process of the community center that you're currently working on. And we just really encourage you to include a warm water therapy pool in that complex. So, and I apologize, I realized I didn't turn my camera on, so I will just say, wave a quick hello, and thank you again.
Thank you, Lindsay. We have Jane. Jane Stahl.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I'm not a user of Mickelson Pool. My husband was for the last 20 years. Well, without the last 2 years, shall we say. And I saw in him the difference that going to that pool made. And it's made me realize that these things that I took for granted, I shouldn't take for granted, and they can be easily taken away by an organization that puts money before people. And that is exactly what Sutter is doing. And this just doesn't apply to seniors. It's children with disabilities. It's individuals recovering from joint replacements. It's anybody who has arthritis. It's anybody who's had surgery. It's pregnant women. all of these people need this warm water therapy, and Sutter has taken it away. This was the only warm water therapy pool in San Mateo County. It's no longer in existence. And, getting the pool reopened, if we possibly can, would be a huge step towards creating a future where people, young and old, are cared about, and a future that we'd all like to experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Do we have any other hands in the public? Councilmember Schneider, did you have a comment?
I do. First, I want to say thank you to all of the people who came and showed and presented tonight. I'm happy to support this. I would love to see the requirements. My medical is Anthem Blue Cross, which then goes to Sutter, and I go to Mills, and I am ashamed that we are, the city of Millbrae, paying into a healthcare system that is supporting Sutter Health on this. So I'm glad we're going to do the resolution tonight. I signed on last year as mayor on that. Firmly believe in aquatic programs in all of its forms. But city manager, I wonder if we can do a little bit more and send, and maybe this is part of the resolution, send a letter to Anthem Blue Cross saying how unhappy we are that our residents, our collective residents, are losing something that's keeping them alive. It's not just nice to go for a swim. This is life-saving, and do something beyond the resolution. Thank you. And Lindsay, thank you, all of you guys, for doing the fight.
Thank you, council member. Vice Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Thank you to everyone here. There's an online petition I think most of us have already signed. And sorry, Lindsay, our new center, we couldn't afford a pool. I wish we could have. That's San Bruno. They're doing it. But we all, and this is long overdue, I know. And it's appalling. So I hope we and you and everybody is successful in getting that pool open, because I know people that used it, and it's just a wonderful resource. I cannot believe that this is happening in such a way. So again, I moved approval. I think we had a second. Call for the vote.
Yeah, I just want to mention to Councilmember Schneider's point that if there is something more we can do, please bring it to our attention. Can we call for the vote, Eduardo, please?
Yes. Councilmember Schneider?
Aye.
Councilmember Holliver?
Aye.
Councilmember Fung?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Papian?
Absolutely. Aye.
Mayor Oliva?
Aye.
The City Council approves a resolution to reopen the Mackey Mickelson Arthritis and Rehabilitation Center therapy pool by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. That is our last item on our agenda. It is 10:05. I think tonight we may adjourn without council comments. If we were sitting in the chambers, we would adjourn without comments. So let's practice. Yes, Councilmember Schneider. You're on mute. You're on mute, Councilmember Schneider.
Thank you, Mayor. I do need to report out on the BPAC grant process.
Let's make it short and sweet, please.
Okay. BPAC grants were, well, Gina can probably give an update of what happened at CCAG, but I'm assuming it went the way it was proposed. Millbrae did not get funded. We lost by 0.4 points. We lost to a city that can claim priority equity communities, even though the project wasn't there near that community, those communities, and that it had a $37 million budget surplus, and that they received $5 million from MTC and the state of California just last summer. So it is very disheartening that grading scoring that we CCAG BPAC tried to build into the scoring, which is a term for all of us to get familiar with, geographical equity, was basically used by CCAG to hide the fact that one city gets a grant every time and has gotten the lion's share of the bicycle and pedestrian funding. I bring this up now because CCAG, the state of California, is presenting, or is in theory setting aside $37 million for a grant process that is starting right now for San Mateo County. The projects that are going to have priority are those projects in community equity, priority equity communities, and those cities that have projects that are already mostly completed with their engineering design, which really means shovel ready, which again is going to be a disadvantage for us. This is the next 4 or 5 years of funding from that funding cycle. So we really hopefully need to do a lot of work in getting our city ready to be competitive in these grants. It is heartbreaking to break by 0.4. I think part of the problem was there were a lot of new BPAC members who had no idea that our #1 goal was supposed to be regional connectivity, which is what every one of Millbrae's grants have been. And yet we have not, we've been funded once in 20 years. And it's really wrong in this new grant thing. Ruben, I think you're on the committee. The people who will be grading this $37 million, up to $5 million per grant, will be 2 BPAC members, 2 CMEC members, and then 4 staff members, some of whom may not even come from this county. And it makes me angry, let alone break my heart, that we cannot bring money into the city the way we are structured. We're just not competitive. It was a well-written grant. Millbrae did write a good grant. It just, if the criteria is stacked against us, we're not going to get funded. Thank you. Oh, and a little shout out. The Interact Club is having their big fundraiser for the Easter Bunny event. It is Friday at Mills High School, $10 if you want spaghetti dinner, and another $10 if you want a backstage and tickets to Footloose. Go Interact.
Vice Mayor?
Super quick, congratulations to MEF. It was a lovely event. They reached and exceeded their goal for fundraising, and we're moving ahead on that front. So congratulations to everyone, although there was a small outbreak. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right. With that being said.
Quick one, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
So a few Millbrae youth leaders have held a session with the seniors at the Millbrae Library this past weekend to help them and show them how to use technology to stay in contact with their families and friends, and show them how to use Zoom and FaceTime and setting up their email account for the first time. Many of them show them how to use social media. Welcome anyone who wants to join, get in contact with me or the city manager. They're going to be doing this for every weekend until the end of May. I believe it's a Saturday. So, but I'll get in touch with Tom to figure out the detail there. Also, Sal, Sheriff's Activity League is holding a fundraiser August 29th. Please sponsor. We're looking for as much donation as we can so that we can help the kids.
And participation. Thanks, guys. Millbrae, yes, Sal's going to have the event in Millbrae. That's huge, huge for us. We're going to be hosting. On that great note, may I adjourn the meeting? Good to go. Thanks, guys. It was a great meeting. Got a lot done. See ya in a couple weeks.
Night.
Thanks, everyone.